Well, thank you so much for being here. And thank you, Rinpoche. Thank you for being here. And I'd like to welcome you all here. I'm also being blinded. Can't see all of you. So thank you so much for being here at our little Tsadra house, our little library. We were talking about the importance of books, and we're all bibliophiles here. We love books, digital books, as well as the physical books. So I hope you get to explore a little bit while you're all here. Take a look at the library. So I'd also like to thank Tulku University and Amelia Hall for inviting Tulku Pema Rigtsal Rinpoche here, and Nico for hosting and making it all happen, and being the driver, and I'm sure every other thing. And also thank you to the translator. I'm sure they're about to have to work very hard. So I just want to say a few words about Tsadra Foundation in case there's a few people in here that don't know. So we've been operating now for almost 25 years, and I think we're up to around 139 publications in English and French, which represents quite a number of hundreds of Tibetan texts translated. And many of those you can see over on that wall. Almost all of them should be represented there. Many of them published with Snowline and Shambhala publications. We also have been supporting the printing of Tibetan texts with Tibetan partners for many, many years. And so at this point, that's in the many thousands of texts that we've helped to print and make available for monks and nuns and other Tibetan readers around the world. And now we also make them available as EPUBs online, so all of you can access them on dharmacloud.tsadra.org anytime. We also provide all kinds of other grants and scholarships, special scholarships for 3-year retreat, which is probably one of the most unique things about Tsadra Foundation, which is the long-term commitment to support practitioners in 3-year retreat, as well as students who are studying in Chögyal in India and Nepal. So I won't go on about all of that stuff. You can look at tsadra.org and see all about all of our other projects and our digital projects we're involved in here in this office. Mostly here we're working on our various digital projects. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here. It's very special to have you. And I think all of you probably know him better than I do, actually. So I don't have to make too much introduction. But I know that you were, you are head of the upper Dudjom lineage. Yes?
Wrong. Totally wrong.
And your main monastery is in Humla, Nepal. So this is a very long trip for you to come all this way.
Yes.
So again, thank you so much for being here and representing the Dudjom lineage. And so I please request you to teach us a little bit about meditation. Thank you.
Ini katering de tata ko dishen ki ta de le kun chen de ta de na de yong yu chong song de ta di kun chen de uti she ba ina ni ga ran na ro ba university ki de na de de ko tung tung shi yu ki de ko ka cho ha ki la te ne na de le ba le ke ti de ko nga ni ga ran sha ba shambhala publication ki ni go ti ni ko ni ko la ta ken na ba ki de ni genzengi dengan dia koran yang tu sun. Ini yang tu kami sebiji kita dia si bawa dengan angge. Ngat cewa jing bikin genzengi ini cewa kita orang jing orang sun cewa tu cewa kita waktu siasat lagi dia marah yang pokok sang tu sang dia ini. Kita ngat tu kita dengan naruba sebelum kita ni universiti segini kita cuma tu boleh koran kita cuma itu kita lapor tu yang probat sebagai ini mereka sebagai yang mare di kawan tu lucu cewa darjah dia Tibetan or the Chögyal tomorrow is to Tibetan Tarkim Shimaji Lukan, the shop which was like 10 English. Naruba Institutes and Naruba University of Tibetan. It that was some down and it's out of formation, very big independent Shibo. Monguchi like Yapton, Monguchi like Pembata, another lawyer, Shaburita law to Jurassic Sasson. In a moment, I think Lopjong Chicuta, Lopjong, the Utu, the Tidia Meva Shabu. Mama didn't look young bear to shoot you. Did you connect better that you do with the Indian national corpus? I own my better rela. ngomba zoshenla timbuda seremuji ngomba zosumti ka pete chigra die ngomba zotia ko jengar muji ngomba chigma to me pham muji ki ngomba zotiga pete chasayo di ta tin nakho so ja ta ni ma ko chasyo nga ni shi sumju ba ya lo ne deji ma to ni to ko ma so re tinda nga pili so a to ti tu ka ni to ji ko ta ta zabuli ko yo ma de ki bu sin ke ja ko yo ma ne peja korong je ta nga ra to computer ke pro peja de yo ma de yo ma pena di tu ji ko ma to ko ka ti ti na ma ti ti ki la choi de shi de ko tin na shi ko ko ji yo ba ina a ta ta zan dile ta nga dap ki ta yo sa de sa ji na shi de 이 따디 가인에 땅 나라 보고 맞췄나야 땅 너무 비로 추와 땡이 로 맞췄다 다들 나라 사기 가인 세기 뭐 탐책이 좀좀 되게 고고 상고 좀좀 매게 할레위기 때문에 그런 거 나왔잖아 아야 되네 kalwasa res tete ka tati kalwasa bugin jongo de Tsadra foundation tredo ne peja tigezi ge sodo tringe konte ngi kunza la misha londa yenden zengi ta ge chibu ta de du tang ya ka karma nga de shi se ta ta ya jo ti peji ni le ta ron tina shin ka zo ngi de ipad na peja de peja ta yapta ta aye ta yu gi ro peji tu ngo ge de ge ten ta ge ta ja de te su shi ge de 쌀 되고 딱 가만히 있는데 저것도 어딘데 지나 보게 나와들라 닝 탁바니 저도 컨디션 이게 된 두지체스 됐는데 이제 다른이야 무튼이라 나로치스 그런 얘기가 한번 나와기 쉬어야 뒤주도 좀 투볼 말 뒤주도 냠도 좀 맞고 아주 지리 태도 딱 강이면 가는 거니만 인지가 리슨지 두지도 다른 지는 얘기 이제 신기 배 나라 신발 배자다 되는 거라서 배 지리 태도 이제 팀도 그만 zambu는 그 컴박한지 계속 팀나신 거라서 나오기 쉬어야 damsang ke tene ngaran to chesota ne dang da nyap to ko de indi ti pe mi ge to tene ge i book so dang tene yong ke pe ke che pare to sir sumra to ju to so ju ke che yang go so din na shen ke ke kap che ta kam na zere do tene mi ser ke sa ta foundation to ji che ta ron tin na shen che ro na tene so mang ba ta da po shi kar ge ta ma ge mang bo Dudjom ni bisung tamji yogi maare, jitri shido jisung shatang yogi maare, nga rang su tersar sambu tangay na, nga su degi rambuchi ge kamung poti sumshi yor, tenzo yogi maare, tina xin padu rambuchi sung mang poti gen chi yor, tenzo yoy na mena ka hapu mang, ta karo pecha pen mang kudu, tini kenzo tarang lo ni lo pardo, nga rang se nandila, lega chini pe kusa tere do, ina ita ngil kya chi support chi nga la pecha ni me, nga la tini zangka rambuchi na xin knowledge ni me, tingi nga chi ki chi mduk de, ina kena bati success molam tang tne yongju ge arang ge tne chi so re ta kena bala ngomro te me to kena ba ya this ara ging tawani love you la on ba na love you
So today I'm here with all of you at the Tsadra office. Just to explain how I got to be here. On this visit came about together with or through the condition of having a small program arranged at Naropa University for me. So yeah, with the help of many people, I was able to give a talk at Naropa University yesterday to a small group. And in conjunction with that being arranged, then this talk at Tsadra Foundation was also arranged. Shambhala Publications President Nico has helped a huge amount to arrange all of this, and many others I know have helped make my visit to Colorado and these programs happen. So that's how and why I'm here today. I guess why I'm here really is because I'm a practitioner of the Buddha Dharma, and that is sort of what we have in common. That is how we all connect, right? So I feel it's good to take up these opportunities when they transpire, opportunities to connect with other practitioners and to share whatever I can share. So first a few words about Naropa University, which I visited yesterday. Naropa University is a world famous institution, right? Especially amongst Buddhist institutions. It's also an institute that a university that all Tibetans are aware of as well. Of course, it's extremely important Buddhist university in the Western world, but it's a place that is well known to all Tibetans as well. We are aware of its history, how it was founded by Tulku Pema Rightsal Rinpoche, and how it's acted as a real kind of seat and wellspring of the Dharma and helped establish the spread of the Buddha Dharma in Western countries. So yeah, Nerup is an extremely significant, has been an extremely significant university in many ways. Now here we are at Tsadra Foundation. This foundation is helping hundreds and thousands of people through its various activities. I'm quite old now, as we were just talking about this. I'm quite old now and don't have the kind of fervor to engage in a lot of intense study like I did when I was younger. But you know, all these digital publications, these EPUBs that Tsadra Foundation has made freely available in Tibetan, just makes me think of how I might have turned out if I'd had those same resources 15 or 20 years ago. I mean, of course, 15 or 20 years ago, EPUBs didn't even exist. You know, we didn't have, we barely started printing Tibetan texts in like, you know, computer input texts. But yeah, for instance, when I was studying Tibet with my teacher, Dudjom Rinpoche, at Dzogchen Monastery, we were studying the Treasure of Abhidharma, and at that point, the only commentary I could get hold of was Khenpo Shenga's commentary, so that's what Khenpo Rinpoche was teaching. But you know, it would have been how wonderful if I could also have got hold of Mipa Rinpoche's commentary, right? But texts were just so rare to get, so rare and so difficult to find back then, that you know, even in a center of learning, our students, we only had that one commentary, and even that was difficult to get hold of. So we just read intensely that one commentary. You know, I'd read Khenpo Shenga's commentary, like which the section we were studying 15 or 20 times a day. I read it so much, fingered the pages so much, they actually went black by the end of the teachings. The whole book was black. I think, you know, if I'd had, like the younger generation do, if I'd had now this free, ready access to so many different commentaries and teachings, I could have, you know, just really excelled in my studies to like a much greater degree. Not just having the resources, like all these EPUBs, but also to be then studying those scriptures under the guidance of such an incredible master as I had, you know. Yeah, so I guess I missed the boat a bit in that case, but all these resources are going to be enormously beneficial, are being enormously beneficial for the younger generation. So yeah, Tsadra Foundation has created a excellent, actually amazing opportunity for the younger generation and for all of us, and this is just something of incredible good fortune. Good fortune that, yeah, that is sort of rooted in Tsadra Foundation's efforts. I showed earlier, I was showing some of you, Eric and Marcus and some others, just two of the EPUBs that I use, because and I was just showing how many annotations and highlights I've made. I was scrolling through them fast, but it was like, took me at least a minute or something just to get through them, and that was just 2 books, you know. Words of My Perfect Teacher and Treasury of Precious Qualities. I have at least 40 or 50 other ebooks that I've used just as much as that. So I just want to say thank you basically for all your incredible efforts, and to encourage you to please keep on going, because the work you're doing is so meaningful and helping so many. It's so important that as Buddhists we keep up with the times, right? It's not enough just to become static. If we want to keep the teachings alive and present in this world, then we need to keep up with the times. We can't just sort of sit around continuing to read our ancient parchment woodblock prints. We need to move with the times, and you're doing that. So please, just an encouragement from my side, support in the form of encouragement to please keep on going. And I know you're working on many new editions and works, and they will be released in the coming years. But just to mention some others that aren't yet available but could be. So Dudjom Lingpa's collected works, Dudjom Rinpoche, Chögyal Yeshe Dorje's collected works, from the Dudjom Tessa perspective, those aren't yet available as ebooks. Degye Rinpoche's collected works, which are 3 or 4 volumes, those are not yet available. Patrul Rinpoche's 8 volumes, they're not all available yet. So yeah, it would be wonderful if these and so many other collections can be made available, and I know you're working on it. I just want to give encouragement. I want to offer you my support as sort of thanks. I don't have any sort of money to donate to the foundation though, so I can't help like that, and I don't have the knowledge, incredible knowledge that someone like Alexander Rinpoche has. So I can't really offer much except just encouragement in the form of praise. So I offer you that now, and I'll keep on offering that into the future.
Dine Di da tiring kenna ba ngala dini di ka chögyal la dem tamba ti shero chi so so di ka la chögyal la dem tamba ti dini tukun dunju ni bi sun jo re ni ti ka teng New York la ma de ba yin dini ta ti di ka de ka de che ko ina ha ko ma kenna ba ge de la ti ge dini chögyal la dem tamba ti New York la she kenna sin ji de she ba de sana la ti ma ya tong de she na ge ha da na New York la ge che de she ba de section the machine and chevere cioè section the chudni ne ni mani in chevere duru chudni ma che di mare chudni get chudni na chevo di mentale ka ma shira check de ni pala ka de se banjo tene mashi chik na shin chi shero chik na shin de ongu ma ta ko computer de robot do in chik na shin chaga ro to shin na de mi in de kala ti mood ki ko ne che ge to du to de cha on de ko chik na shin ti cha to ma e da na New York shege na shin chi ayam ta ge ta tur ge wa shu she shu de ge gi ne she ta tur shu de ni man she gyo ma re de ge di ni na she bo ju na ka le ka ma sta de ti ti ni ka ta ina nga ra on tu tu che gi ne ma ke na ba shu ye ti ti ni ka ta di ti nga ra to ge kharo di na public domain do ma re di ni da ma re ti ni li chö gi do ma ni chu ba na da public domain ma ni ke de shan ni ma re ke na ba ti ni ma di chi Lama digi shu nang wi ki sokta jo, cherang so ina shu wingi sokta jo. Oya, tam tsuk sung tu nama tuna sung tu ho ndo to, tam yu go ma to, gen digi ma re. Tenta de gazo de shu lu ku do tang go ne, di kya sar ka she de chang, tene ma tang jo ju ju su den tene. Len to yin, ke tam ma de tu ku tene sha ho chi, a tene kya de chi je she re. Nga de la yung tu ki tene kor chi su ta, tene naro pa ge de, yung tu su yung tu do chou ge, nga su ki tene chi ki ta, ya tang cha kyo te, 네 MLA랑 저 챔피언스 경기 자와지 콩나만 자와지 생각도 있고 같이 좋아해 팀이 같이 콩게 때문에 원래다 그거하고 싶은 나와야 될 것 같네 익숙하겠네 MLA를 생각도 되게 제스 인슈인스 그래가지고 그것들이 차동에다 제일 너무 상황 당분 이슈 공급자한테 콩다 이 때문에 자와 챔피언스 경기 콩나만 주네 자와 샤샤를 때문에 뭔가 배 깔리 먹고 잡으라
So now what the teaching for today, or our topic for the day, you requested me to teach this instruction, this fifth instruction by Dudjom Lingpa, the Herupa Dudjom Lingpa, entitled Instructions for Chögyal. I taught this text a few weeks back in New York, and it seems that some of you heard about it, and then requested me to teach the same text here. Teach the same text in the same way here at Tsadra. That made me a little nervous because the situation is different. Back in New York, I taught over the course of 2 days and 4 sessions in total, so that was 8 or more hours of teaching time. And here we've only got 2 hours, or not even that. So, how to squeeze the sort of 8 hours of teachings into 2 hours, that's, a challenge. Also, the other thing is that when it comes to sort of teachings or talking, or even just talking, things never really come out exactly the same way, right? Because, we're not robots, we're humans, so sometimes even one's mood kind of influences the way that one teaches or presents something in the situation. So in any case, I will try my very best to present this teaching, to give you this teaching in the same way as I gave it back in New York. But yeah, mindful of the time constraints. Another point I wanted to mention at the outset here is that since I will be teaching you this text, this is not then like a casual kind of situation, like just giving a public talk, a general talk. So this is a Dharma teaching proper, and that being the case, we need to from all of our sides, kind of conduct ourselves accordingly. That means, me assuming the role of teacher, you assuming the role of student, us honoring our connection, maintaining the samaya that will forge between us through this connection, and also in line with that, then reciting the 100 syllable mantra several times, making a mandala offering, and so on. So please, everyone, keep that in mind, right? We need to, even if we're not able to really do these things genuinely, at least try, And just before I begin, I want to say, backtrack and say regarding the talk at Naropa University, a special thank you to Amelia, the because I know that she is the one who actually did most of the organisation and work. So I want to thank you personally for all your efforts and for giving me such a warm welcome and for making all of that happen. I know you went through a lot of trouble, so really thank you. And also just acknowledge that, I mentioned other people who sort of contributed, but I know that the sort of seed was, sort of the initial contact and seed was planted when my monk Chögyal contacted you, right? And then you got the ball rolling. So a special thank you to you.
ini 다 나도 이 Chögyal 때 봐서 시키 등원 잘라테네 나도 Chögyal 나한테 강한테 연락도 받고 당 jam도로야 인데라 연락도 받고 당 지기 깨도 근데 지고요. 다들 제와지 용 말에 이나 다 뒤뒤지 마찬가지 되잖아요. 걔다 뭐 탐지기 되네. 말아서나 제수 이랑 제시는데 넘받은 게 되게 자와다 맞는 되게 되게 나 탐지기 또 봐야니.学习为前途的那个讲过的，身边我是做蛮正当，也就是接触我们做的，他就是他这个是要么对呢，今天就对马现在样他，今天今天美国去呢，特别在下楼去是的呢，当我刚说刚生多位呢，呀，的多久了不能上街，我这工作了，我都是把心没给，我觉得已经让这个大概这把些说什么都这个这个。이제 말이죠. 우리 저쪽 거기서 우리 마사지를 이제 다시 좀 좀에 좀 생겨도 되지 좀 말아 따라서 자라던 위기와는 되는 장치셔도 이제 선바선바지 도시 신세와 도시 땅콩도 장자도 이제 선발라고 엄바들사도
Samaya Manubalaya Antasato Tenova Tijato Mebawa Sutakayo Mebawa Subukaya Mebawa Adorato Mebawa Sawasiti Mebreta Sawa Kama Sutame Tedam Shiriyam Guru Savatata Gata Mame Samaya Sato Samaya Manu Sato Om Bhadra Sato Dane meje mobile tamle nengal yin yala mango ko chapsu ji ko do ji sabage do ji sabana ye chandwe salada ya ko son do do yala ke tamle yanga tamle to lo sha so de mi son de ne don da ya ta bar de do do ji sabage yin sabana je ri ko ji de mi don tamle ta bai kai nawa ta lo ne de ji ko da ji ko ta bar ya la ya number me de danan da de do Nadi tabaram jaragata Om Bhadra Sato 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 Om Gevandi Yamanta Puja Sambhata Pinna Raji Yamaya Salam Jamais t'entends rire du génie de Gamba des engagements de Météo,
So, better late than never. Before chanting those liturgies, she said, as a custom accords, as Dharma custom accords, before the teaching begins, we'll chant the 7 branches, which including refuge, and the 100 syllable mantras, just briefly and short. So please, if you, myself and my monk will chant those liturgies, as permissions and if you don't know those liturgies and can't chant along, just visualize and rejoice and rouse the mindset.
Tini 되게 뭐 기교 살아가는 기교 살아. 다디디 단다 chögyal 성에 담바디 tini 알레 다 담보들 인디카다 아케나바 탐제기 담보 최선발라 선비출도 세트니 최년 단디 시에고레 되게데 콜론다 코제나 바니오레 콜론디 네 섬전 탐지기 돈도 오야 진짜와 파만이 저렇게 도와서 섬전 탐지기 돈도 민디 최대 쉬고요 민디 최대 쉬네 그냥 양서랑 섬전 탐지기 돈 가진 보지 놓고 야비 콜론디 상주선 콜론 담보거래 이때는 동합 관계값은 상주선 있지 마세나 네 최대 남았다고 시작하면 뒤쪽에 콜론 담보 띄고 직접 콜론 이와데 그것은 뒤때는 상압 로지트 받기는 저거 친구 그 최대 그 통통 저거 이거네 생고하지래 이제 분순적으로 이거를 같이 생고잖아 뭐야 되네 네 분순적아
네 성도빨 기로 인상과 단지 성도빨이 랑다 자마레데 있는 진짜의 권이 그 간주다 땡주님만 좀 다 권장 롱chen 좀 들라서 권 딘들 망고지 주되어 단디문이 지 지된 관계 샤리 상다 중중지래 띠띠인도 강하잖아 버리 내 분좀 좀 성도빨 기로 야 넘버 분좀 줘봐 다 취식인 가디니 그걸 보지 인상과 전화도 탐지 내야 되니 그걸 보지 이게 걸 전방 20장 알아 써봐 어야 되니 대대고 지기 때문에 인생 상고래 네 뒤에 그거라 뒤에 분좀 줘봐 가다냐면 이게 뒤에 봤는 거래 그 쉬어 분좀 줘봐는 저같이 쉬어인 봐 대대비 분좀 줘봐 뭐 이랑 신도 살다니 얘네 상기 임바라 랑신 탐지 얘네 상기 임바 어야 대대비게 되는 두식이 거네 얘네 생고지데 분좀 줘봐 뭐 이거는 생기디 나 같이 관계 선동도 인생들에 다 뒤에 그거 다 뒤로 기와 시에는 가서 뒤쪽에 상도 말이라 그래서 다 접촉을 지키는 거지 또 그냥 땡기는 만든 게 있어.
So before we begin the teaching proper, but at the outset of the teaching we need to be aware of how to listen to teachings, how to receive teachings. So
야구 거기도 왜? 거기도 와. 거기는 야.
everyone else hears, maybe speak louder. Tell me if you can't hear me. So we need to rouse the correct motivation and corresponding conduct. So regarding the motivation, this means to first of all rouse the mindset of the vast outlook of bodhicitta, the thought that I will establish all mother and father sentient beings who have shown me such kindness in the past, all parent sentient beings, and no matter which of the 6 types of beings they are currently reborn as. In order to benefit them, profoundly benefit them, I will now listen to this Dharma teaching and I will put it into practice so that I can be of service to them. So in this way, rouse the motivation of bodhicitta. It's vital that our Dharma study and practice, whether it be connected to the sutra teachings or tantric teachings, that it be infused, embraced by bodhicitta. Otherwise, our Dharma endeavors will not be authentic. In addition, because this teaching pertains to the Vajrayana, then we also, in addition to bodhicitta, need to rouse the profound outlook of the 5 perfections, which is the specific Vajrayana or tantric outlook. The 5 perfections are as follows. So the perfect place, we need to acknowledge the perfection of the place, this location. We need to give rise to the perception that this place is not an ordinary place, it's rather the glorious copper-colored mountain of Zangapari. We need to, and also rouse the perception of the perfect teacher. So that means you need to perceive me, the teacher, as Gurumshe, the perfect retinue. That's you. You need to perceive yourself and everyone else here as Gurumshe's 25 disciples, and so on. Regard time as the perfect time, meaning the primordially pure time of equality. And the teaching, well, the teaching, of course, is the perfect teaching of the great perfection. So please bring to mind these 5 perfections, these 5 ever-present perfections. And in this way, acknowledge that the true nature of all sentient beings is primordial awakening. And with this outlook, with this twofold outlook, please listen to the teachings. Really, I could, and we don't have time in this context to explain the 5 perfections in any more detail. I presume most of you are very familiar with them, so please, or at least somewhat familiar, so please bring that to mind and maintain this outlook.
Oh yeah. 니 단대를 강송됐으나 체지적이 림바디 강선은 Chögyal 담바서 다 보는 게 둔좀 비게 샬로 그니 Chögyal 스킨틀라 네 공개 접하지 못해 뒤뒤지네 냠내지 뭐 손게 손거래 되네다 지단게 당분간도 돼라 니로마 이제 춘예당 지금에서 건다다 반이게 내루랑 좀기 신이지셔로 시스라고 당분이시라 다 내루랑 좀 쓸때 보디 찍어 되면 이제 죽주라도 그거 두고죠 디시고 주는 때는 지금 다와 먹고지 버리기 이제 그냥 계속 년롱이 막 알아셔롱이 막 이래데 다 디디시라 때 디기 두두지 컨디션은 가도 승이 나지 단지 시에 간이시나 자신 부하지는 소리야 그냥 이제 딱 온다 유여바지가 되네 두두지 이바지가 청아지시나 강가사리에서 땡인데 다들 그냥 Chögyal 담바서기 되네 실람 친구도 네 디오시도 되네
Tidishen the service con the Lamata can encourage him to do the thing in the shake, the label on to do then it can be interest.
So the teaching that I'll be sharing with you today is entitled Instructions for Chögyal. It is a concise set of instructions taught by Dudjom Lingpa to his student, a student called Chögyal. So with this short teaching, Dudjom Lingpa gave his disciple Chögyal some very concise, pithy instructions for the practice of great perfection. The reason I taught this teaching originally a few weeks back was actually in response to the request of my students Chuni and Jigme. They originally asked me to teach shamatha practice according to Dudjom Lingpa's Nelok Ramjong. But Nelok Ramjong is actually a very large and of course profound scripture. It's 260 folios, so it actually would take several months to teach that. And you know, they don't have that much time, and nor do I. So for a while I thought, well, maybe I can extract, you know, how can I extract sort of the vital points? They want shamatha as taught by Dudjom Lingpa in that text. And in order, sort of as a way to fulfill their request, then I looked through Dudjom Lingpa's other pith instructions and found this text, and I thought this was perfect for the situation. It's a blessed and pithy instruction, and it contains, in a sense, the vital points of Nelok Ramjong, that much larger treatise. So I asked them if they thought that would be okay, and they very happily agreed. And hence I taught this text. So that's how the text was chosen.
Tango de Chögyal Masindi Chögyal Daba Chögyal's Kanjo, Daba City Kan Damas over it. Kona Tindi Chishos and Dangaranzana Indican orders and way. I had an intuitive Chishos, still a para when you get the Mengagas to Dam Damas. Mengas again, they don't take a Damas again to the Dabas against the Mengas and Pitichi, but the Mengas again, the Lel House in Kojua. Never Shimbuchi, Lel House Kojo, Mengas. Penengoman Michi Gari down the Wars, Gari down the Gari Dicunshots on Lamba. The Langa Puntana could so much they could calling in the Garis of the shots, Lavis, the Garis of the Lemos, in Gari Junshot, Josorochis, Lavis, why I am the good cut of Paris. Didn't cover the Gamma Toaji, just magic water, Kawadi, fixed magnetic, Toaji, Tass, the Easter, the Turks, the Garis. I may have a Chögyal, that Toachi was young, some do that Toachi. Take a Laja cousins, Dorja Lavis. I'm too Toachi if you don't get them. Toaja with the Dorchi, I'm good you can go looking with knowledge. She's again as you take Menga second the Petina, how Toachi get the girl together when I think, Lel house in the Paramote, Lel house in a chicken neck, what to eat, the Dangas, what the Mengas or this.
So first the title, Instructions for Chögyal. Chögyal is the name of the disciple, the recipient. Instructions means like personal instructions. Personal instructions meaning like, you know, you're telling someone to do something, do this and this and that, right? With the idea that they're actually going to do it. So we have a similar term in Tibetan, mengak, right, which is often translated as pith instruction. So damba or damga and mengak, are very similar words. The pith instruction has a connotation of like pithy, easy, and vital. A pithy, easy, and vital instruction. So one day someone was driving along a highway and their car broke down. They, called to a halt, and they called the mechanic, and asked them to come and repair their car. The mechanic arrived after some time, looked at the car, opened the hood, had a look at the engine and everything, just kind of like surveyed the situation. There was a kind of like a nail or something just raised part of the apparatus, and the mechanic just takes a hammer and then he just whacks this nail down once, and then he says to the driver, "Start your car." And the guy gets in the car and starts it, and it's working. And the guy and the mechanic says, "Your car's fixed now." And the guy says, "Okay, how much do I owe you?" And he says, $100. And he says, "What do you mean, $100 for one, knock of the hammer?" And he says, "It's $1 for the hammer, the bash of the hammer, and $99 for the knowledge." So the instructions are like that. They are very swift, efficacious, easy to apply, and direct kind of methods for pointing things out.
Tendu Kati, Dabati Devi, Tinepe, Kansa, Chet Devi, Kansa Chick Chögyal again, Telatine, Dudjom Lingpa Para. That Motu Tinet Damba, Congress, Yamenchi, you get to the Song Telata, Dambas, the Tini, but I would shiver Javari. To some Sanjin, do people, one sound to get the Dudjom. Malam Lindil, Kyoke, never should get Dubduna, never should do the Nas, and that is shiver Jepatan, Tini, Kafeta, Congress Tamjava to Nire, to some Sanji goes in the amount that to some Sanji Tamji get to it in it, put to some of them Sanji in a Chögyal to JRS, Gurumbuchere, they kicking Allah. Single of she's going to Lama the Gula single of Budu, kicking Allah single approaches, Jones, the Conta, the Hushale. Molam and Turkey, which you name, Kansas and Chögyal again, Kyo Moman, Molam Teva, that one didn't go to or yet didn't go to Jabanga Necos, Moram Tabaina, no, didn't do nothing, Dudjom Lingpa, Chendil, and Lendil, Kyo Mamu, Navigate in any Vatican, Zamares. On the Indican, Molam and Turkey, which was at Kyo Molam, Gilendry, Never should do the Nasa, Setuluchi, Sanji Kopon, to YouTube and project your industry or yet any congregate of us with the things what is on rest. That's did you on a barrier should make some of my topic, but to get my shines.
So I'm going to go through the text quite quickly and briefly because if I, explain each line or word in any kind of detail, we just don't have enough time. So first of all, again, the title instructions for Chögyal. So Chögyal is the specific recipient. These instructions are specific instructions that Dudjom Lingpa gave especially for this student. So custom-made pith instructions for this student so that they can practice apply themselves to practice. So the text proper begins first of all with pay an act of homage and then the pledge to compose. Embodiment of all Buddhas, past, present, and future, glorious Samanta Bhaja, late-born Vajra, care for me. With these two lines, the author is paying homage to glorious Samanta Bhaja, who is the late-born Vajra. Here we're referring to Guru Rinpoche, right? Guru Rinpoche is the embodiment of all Buddhas, past, present, and future. Dudjom Lingpa is calling upon Guru Rinpoche, saying, please care for me and bestow your blessings on my student. Secondly, if you, a person with past aspirations and karmic connections, so this in the next line are the pledge to compose. If you, a person with past aspirations and karmic connections, so here Dudjom Lingpa is speaking to the aspirations and connections that this student inevitably made in the past, perhaps directly with Guru Rinpoche and Guru Rinpoche's teachings, Guru Rinpoche's legacy, or perhaps directly with Dudjom Lingpa in a previous life. So already some existing karmic connections, some aspirations have been made to establish their existing connection. So you with these past aspirations and karmic connections with me, if you really want to accomplish some dharma, meaning if you are really interested in accomplishing enlightenment in a single life and in a single body, then I will teach you the great perfection.
Tindu Kala, Tati great perfection, the Jojo with the Zopachimbuki, Tawa, the Kombachashi, Tindu Tatabunga, Zopachimbuki, qualities of Arena, Old Hako, or it Dangong engaging Givashi, can never polish your idea, which is Dangon in the public talk, public over the color. Oh, book talk now, in a Dangong is Sheva in the Nifiji can never tamse, Kosari, they into the Tayang, Young Josiana, into Jumo, into Gangaran, so send in Tamchiki, you like the shaking was in Jure, they did in a regular to me, your mare, Dombala, Shantola, Karna, your mare, Kiwala, your mare, Chupuch, the Tango Cabaret, mare, education, Manging Cabaret, mare, Shabu Cabaret, mare, Pobata, Injicum, Tamjigula, same music, the shaking was in the year. The shaking would some gentlemen, Julia, that deal, good not a long Mangotango and don't not a long Mangotango, then a long time than the long chapter you should not do that. The long Mangotan, Torore, Kazamokusha machine, but they can have a Hako or a drink can have a dairy, you think you can catch up when a Tamji, your name again, as you then other Pobakashi people that they when again, lots of pay you will come to the town of the day you cannot tap, kona batene kuyen chimba te ke de yokin tamshi ngoni shamba la tang Tsadra tang tene karpa naro isu ki geken tang scholar ka kya te tunda ka kya te tamshi te tinde indu kala dindam la ngichi shivu sasar shivu labu mara kya so direction si tene kala ta ki labu kata wale dinde ngazu tamshi gyura deshi nyingu te yore deshi nyingu te ondo kandi chiyo to deshi nyingu te ondo shiki te tamshi te tene na tawa ta gopa chaba ko ndam yore naram kala yoyi pa tamshi na pen nana sayin nana chuyo pa ina sade maglo porto chuyo tungu ma ijingi nuru jiyo na ya tene ijingi nuru tsadang tene dhamma ki bede na ijingi nuru ki te yondin tungu ma ijingi nuru ya sawa na ya tene chitra che tene tena tena sa dhamma nye ten picture zila tena diamond ra duwa te diamond tangbo sa nang chu tene tsangma suyo te palis gyab dar te fuku wu chu te diamond ya sha te rindan chenpo shivu se la pe maza te kaya dudu she ta ti kurang ka lurgyu she nan don nangla pe mi kiyo ya sangi chom den digi manang ijingi nuru chitra che ba se ijingi nuru chitra kandi ti lurgyu she ta ti nang te shen ngibu pe shang she go semchen tam chi kyo la de shen ngibu ta kandi zingo tu kyo ko ti she go ta ti den tanggong shivu kiwa she ti ki ta pechi ti ko chewa che sho ti mena kya nang ba tam chi ki katsang nganzo de New York la she du kanga 디기 때문에 이 셰바디 타상야 페이지 인터넷 나 요에 사례 인터넷 가 유튜브 나 요는 가이네 디만이 캐라 요에 되니 연주 캐나 반년다 시기 내고 계시는 것도 간대 요 동고대 하고 그래 디데 하고 때 디원 원도 디르게 탑라 됐다와 고블라 쳬바 세트는 되는 그랬어
So when it comes to the Great Perfection, this teaching is essentially a teaching of the Great Perfection. Here we are taught the view, the meditation, and conduct according to the Great Perfection in this text. However, before we engage in the practice of the Great Perfection, before we get into the details of its view, meditation, and conduct, we first of all need to understand the essence, meaning the natural ground or state of things, the essential state, the natural ground of things, which is the fact that all sentient beings have Buddha nature. All sentient beings, without distinction, without exception, are primordially endowed with Buddha nature. I explained this in some detail last night. Not just Buddha nature, but also sort of the basic state of things. I presented this last night, and also spoke to how it's very important to understand this sort of the basic state of things, for lack of a better word. Before going any further, I think many of you were there. So I won't repeat myself. In any case, the time constraint, have to keep that in mind. In short, all sentient beings are primordially endowed with Buddha nature. This is the case regardless of one's education, one's race, one's gender, whether one is from east or west, what type of being one is. Everyone has Buddha nature. There are dozens of quotations from both Sutra and Tantra that I could recite now to back up this statement, but we don't have the time. In any case, I feel in this context there's really not that much need. Everyone here is very well educated in the Dharma. I mean, this audience is made up primarily of people from Shambhala Publications, Tsadra Foundation, and Europa University. So you're all actually Buddhist scholars and students. I really don't need to say much. If I just mention the term or concept, sort of point you in a certain direction, you're already there, right? What we need to do is manifest this by Buddha nature, our primordial endowment of Buddha nature. In order to do that, then we talk about the view, the meditation, and the conduct, right, as a means to manifest our basic Buddha nature. It's a bit like, you might have water underground, but if you don't actually bore down into the water and do something to extract the water, you're not going to be able to, enjoy the water, right? Just having the water there underground isn't actually, you actually need to do something to access the water. We could also use that's just an example. Similarly, the example of a wish-fulfilling jewel. A wish-fulfilling jewel has the power to, fulfill one's wishes just upon supplication, but if the jewel has been fallen into a puddle of mud, if it's covered in dirt, if no one even knows it's there, it's not going to be able to perform its function. So therefore you need to retrieve it from the mud, you need to polish it and clean it, and then make your prayers, and then it'll function, your wishes will be fulfilled. A modern example we could use, another example we could use is that of a diamond, right? I saw some footage of how diamonds are mined, and how first of all they're sort of encrusted in like, ore or whatever, I don't know what the right term would be, in ore, and actually not that sort of perfect, but then they're extracted through a series of processes, and eventually they become this beautiful diamond that we know as a diamond, and they're regarded as very valuable. It's just an example. And there are many stories about the wish-fulfilling jewel and these other analogies that Buddha gave to illustrate Buddha nature in the sutras and other texts. In any case, I talked about Buddha nature in more detail than this last night, and also about Buddha nature and the basic ground, the natural state, in some previous talks in the past weeks in New York. So if you want to hear me explaining these points in more detail, you can listen to those recordings. I think they're mostly on YouTube and already available. But anyway, the first point, what I'm saying is that at the very outset, we first of all need to understand that Buddha nature is present in all sentient beings, and we need to know what Buddha nature is. This is the first thing we need to do, first thing we need to ascertain. And then with this sort of with the foundation, with this understanding which acts as a foundation, then we can get involved in the view, the meditation, and the conduct of the great perfection. One by one. That's it.
He get to what time did it that the ranking in sending all the assembly get tabby hakona. The name Lam Tanji the Tobachimbo Lamkin Roshavis. Did the Hamagona, I'm also taking Tipat and over the Tipangu to the Sangis against Shane, took you to the summit and drawing at the end, but and give the batting and Pangu to the Sangia, took you to the Samkina, then also told the Lam the Taran would chat over it. Then the landing huge Hapra Tango in a sending over the Ram Sangi, but the Hako. Then the lamp comes again a corridor chamber, Tulas of a Sosa, and Garjigana, Tartu rank is 70 degrees, but it won't ship you get Tapreto, Hakona, the name around the GBS the way the Tata Kadinekora, just a distance in the river that he did the Tata that Hakodores.
If we lack this sort of foundational view, then our practice and efforts will not move in the right direction. It's a bit like having a target in the east and shooting into the west. You know, you're not going to hit your target. So we need to first of all, ascertain this fundamental view, the fact that all sentient beings have Buddha nature, and that all the practices we engage in on the path are simply means to make manifest this primordial endowment of Buddha nature. For instance, the fivefold preliminary practices, the mundro, the accumulation of 100,000 refuge, bodhicitta, vajrasattva recitation, mantra offering, school yoga, and also prostrations. If we can understand that all of these effortful practices we engage in are simply a skillful means for dispelling the adventitious obscurations that are veiling our primordial Buddha nature, they're simply a skillful means for making our enlightened nature, our ever-present enlightened nature, for making that visible and manifest, then our practice really will go on track and really will be effective. It really will bring us ever nearer to the manifestation of the great perfection. If on the other hand we don't have this understanding and we think that what our practice is doing and what we need to do is to get rid of these our non-virtue, we need to sort of get rid of our afflictions, get rid of our obscurations, and we need to create and cultivate a state of enlightenment that isn't already there. Then our practice, our efforts will still be, will still lead us towards enlightenment, but in a very roundabout way. So that's why it's so important, first of all, to really ascertain that we all have Buddha nature. This is our primordial endowment, our true nature, and all the various paths of practice that Buddha taught, whether it be the practice of the 6 paramitas or anything and everything else. They're simply skillful means to make this primordial endowment of Buddha nature manifest, to actualize what is already there. It's a bit like once, a GPS. Once you've keyed in your destination location, then it's guaranteed that you're going to get there in the end, right? Like you've got your destination in mind. That's it.
Well, yeah. That means the Tango and Council to Senate, this is those, say. Chur Tamjin, Tangram Lodo Namshi secure, Lodo Namshi Sigenti, Kamanzaki, Neta Shambole, Lodo Namshi Sigenti, Tabasunga, and Chanchus and Kamjiki, 온주주만도나 장주쌤도 파르쇼 저거잖아 년투기 있다 랑산지기 라라 주발라 노동 남바시고래 로조니 바타초리냐 가와라 삼바 셈미다 와서마 리균제에서 국대 크르민 님으로서 디시디기 로야 보시면은 최야 보지 또 가와니 요 말에 최야 보지 버지 와다 로동 남바시고 디 베스지 디 저거침부 연주지라고 그래 디 매판주 미래 최주기게 로도요 말에 최주기 로도요 와르치발라 올로도 남바시고 계셔버래 이 나라가 들어되는 단조니가 와다 재밌다 보니 소우송 세인드가 달조로 세겐데 밀리르 부스타를 알아서 밀리 당내들 저뭐 달와 제주로 주저딩 그 아메리카 얘기니 뉴욕 옆자리 이제 되었어 다디 달조로 세겐데 달와 세겐데 미달을 더 달와서래 달와 강화다 최지기로 달와고 그래 최지기로 컴바 요겐들 달와서래 최지기로 막홈나 미달바래 강인다 미리den이네 미달바래 최와이나 미달에 최와이는 아도나지 zenshenda kwen jikding chawa kajang chik sendi chachar tam top tang yen tang da yunda longcho tang da yundena medal bare to to kola maru kwen ma to kage yo mar su da su ina ya ten chu ma shi chu che bala mi khomba de la medal ba sare chu ji gu la de ne kokko yogen de la talwa sare ta tal de jorwa se de ti gi tin kokko de wa ta jor se wa ti la kun je longje ram jam gi ta jor te sum ki che wa sum she ta jor la milu chamba wa ta jor se mi gi se wa Milu Zambawas, Milu Caprawas, Milu Rinchens, the Sumdo. And this is young derivatives in a red. Milu Zambawas against church and imaging Milu top there at the bed of the church and image in the mean, Kochubu Kasu in and Kochewa Kasu in and Ko Riptombu Kandeji in and Milu Zambawas, the church Milu Zam, the Milu Toba Red Age at Milu the Toba, the Milu Rinpoche, Mari Milu Caprava, Mari, later Milu Zambawas. 밀리 개발하서 근데 제가 주지 제가 지된 적인 게 알아서 진저지네 다 제가 저거 제네 내대긴 들라더니 밀리 개발하서 따지다 밀리 잠바를 또 밀리 개발이야 쉐또 쭉 뒤뒤 그냥 총으로 올라가도 오피스로 뒤뒤 쉐도 보지 미제들 땅에 지가라도 땅에 있는 자제 이슈 숨주지 쉐라더니 땅동에도 있나 뒤뒤 밀리 개발하서 딱 자제 숨주 빼는 이마치가 쉐도 가지시기도 로 미제지가 로자투기나 로 숨주 쉐지긴도 로 드니 시토게는 되는 로니 드니 주지겐도 딘데지게 드니 제가 드니티 밀리 캐파라바스 딱 밀리 린chen 생긴데 수제스는 거 문제 그럼 도리 주지잖아 맨나 주진 밀라다고 맨나 드는 군신 농신을 된다고 꽃에 그런 쉐다 다 제제게 들 밀리 린chen 체질 루직라 밀라레와 그 차게신 거 공터와리 농신 남좀 되네 그거 저버치 그거 어떻게 와리 오 얘도 밀리 린chen 딱 맞아 디하고 슈 두발에 미류 마토는 슈시타요 말. 미 둘라 때내서 등을 치고 치는 저기 신이 얘가 왜 먹고 드시니 말아서네. 근데 배나 간수 직신부지가 갈고 저는 주승이 많은 갈수고 말에 슈신부지 나서 슈 갈수고 말 먹고 말 슈 예로. 주승이 있다고 미디 주승도 오지래. 예 코르바디 초난 신시래. 디파로도 템퍼처라 주승을 맞는 출로 템이도 저 코르바 능을 이야기하는데 미를 되는 시합은 도토고로 맞아. 미를 되는 맞아. 그래서 하이르기 리벤지 떴나 가게 할게 미야 그 말에. 디인도 그러나 말아서 달 조르 되는 게 좀 쉬워요. 메테리스.
So now we come to the four mind changings, these four vital reflections that turn our mind to the Dharma. This is what the text discusses next. These four mind changings are universal reflections common to all three vehicles, the vehicle of Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. The Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas of the foundational vehicles, they also need to train in these four mind changings. No matter what type of practitioner you are, it's not possible to actually succeed in practice, to practice well, without taking these four mind changings to heart. So the reflection on the preciousness of obtaining a human life endowed with freedoms and advantages, the reflection on impermanence and death, on the shortcomings of samsara, on karmic cause and effect. Without taking these to heart, one won't have a strong wish to engage in practice, and so one will not succeed in practice. Here the text, from among the four main mind changings, the author focuses mainly on the precious human life and impermanence and death, these two. With the fifth line, think about how difficult it is to obtain the freedoms and advantages. Dudjom Lingpa is referring to the precious human body endowed with the 8 freedoms and 10 advantages. I'm not going to list all of these, tell you exactly what the 8 freedoms and 10 advantages are. No doubt you already know them. Also, when I taught in New York, I taught this text in New York in more detail. I went through them there, so you can always listen to that recording if you wish to. When we say freedom, we need to understand that when we say a precious human body endowed with the freedoms, we're talking about freedom to practice. That is the freedom we're talking about. It's being in a situation where you are free to practice. So of course, being a human being, not born in the hell realm and so on and so forth. But it's also possible that, you can be a human being. You can even be a practitioner, someone wearing robes and supposedly engaged in Dharma activity. But if your mind is actually caught up in the worldly concerns, if you're preoccupied with mundane affairs, even if you look like a practitioner, you don't actually possess freedom, the freedom to practice the Dharma. So, yeah, we need freedom to practice the Dharma. Then we have the advantages, the 10 advantages. So that's what qualifies a human life as precious, right, in this context. Regarding this, Longtempa made a threefold distinction about the precious human life. He made a threefold distinction regarding human life. He said that some human lives are just common, so a mere human existence, a common human existence. This refers to people who do not practice Dharma, who have not engaged with the Dharma at all. Such people might be very educated, like in other fields, very rich, have a very high status, but that does not make them anything more than common human beings. Second, he mentions special human beings. So this refers to people who do engage in practice. Maybe they spend half of their time on sort of in Dharma and half in worldly activities. So their focus is split between the Dharma and worldly activities. This is certainly better than being just a common human being who's not involved in the Dharma at all. So someone like this might practice for spend a few hours of their day practicing, but then also pursue like mundane preoccupations like work and other mundane things. Maybe in total they spend like 20 or 30% of their life on the Dharma and the rest focused on mundane stuff. Then we have the third category, what Longtempa described as precious human life. So with this, he's referring to people who devote their entire lives without exception to the Dharma. Examples of this are Longtempa, the great yogi Milarepa. They just devoted themselves heart and soul to the Dharma, right? As a result, Milarepa, in his case, he attained the state of Mahamudra within a single life and body. And as for Longtempa, within a single life and body, he manifested the state of the Great Perfection. So those are examples of people with a precious human body, according to Longtempa's threefold distinction. So we need to understand that without attaining the precious human body endowed with these freedoms and advantages, it's not possible to practice the Dharma. It's not possible to actually engage in Dharma practice. This body of ours is like a ship. Rinpoche quoted some beautiful lines from scripture that I won't try to translate. The point is that this body is like a ship that a ship that can ferry us from one shore to the other, that can ferry us safely across the turbulent ocean of the sufferings of samsara to the far shore of enlightenment. If we were, for instance, if someone would try to swim to the other side of the ocean, they would drown, right? There's just not enough, strength to survive the waves and the storms and everything else. But if you take the support of a ship, then using that ship, you can get yourself to the other shore, right? So our body is like that. This support of a precious human body gives us the potential vehicle to free ourselves from samsara.
Surni kisulla son dondan de parashila rem atia sa kena patu donda de purchase ta bilu inchinchi ko chigores haniba mitawa sonare mitawa chewa maje para lota ringun nakaton cerap topa bela tu tambiche tam chapra gas ya ta chemitawa de chengore chemitawa second 상기 좀 된 되게 지송으로서는 두시 탐지기 전에 미다부 두시 촉고 제 탐지기잖아 랑부치기 제네 촉고 송 랑부치기 제의 강제의 현대 만들어져요. 다시 세당이 지금 랑부치 제 강제 들어서 랑부치기 제의 메타페마 카이제반 하시죠. 벤조 제의 랑치기 제의 촉고 기반이에요. 두시 탐지기는 촉도 기반이 강하잖아. 미다부 두시래도 다만도 스tam블시가 두시에 처음에 디빌로로 왔다. 맨날 망고지 난거 같아. 티 탐지는 촉도 기반 두시 미다와래. 미다와데 디빌로 개바이는 템미 쉐러 두고 빼면 가오요. 텐도 강라 미다바 두시 탐지는 촉도 기반 미다바데래서. 텐도 강라 다 깨자 지켜도 강라 미다바데 때라 주시고이나 타바템바요마 도제오이나 미다바진 타바템바죠 말이 카데오이나 야테 타바템바죠 로좀망고 자마야 제 타바템바죠 뭐 강나 이나고 강나야 시네 나주게 쓰면 강나테나 타바템바 여긴 찍어요 뭐 미다바 임바데 하고 봐줘 이 라신기 아티 커비기 쳐는 인부민도 삼주게 로라 샤르게 디로라 샤는데 그러나 최대 라신기 저주게 되는 거라나 까와 메바다 최대 저주를 들어왔다 저렇게 돼요 이게 뭐 당연히 미담 꼴롱세는 저렇게 something 나서다 본상을 미셔로만 빼면 무슨 소리야. 다 미담 그런 거 섹션 든게죠. 다 뒤등에 들어 장전 주저 도셔서 정말로 빼님 부셔요. 뒤뒤 강한테 알아서 미담 받을 빼미기 되는 거래. 최와 약부지래 지주 등님도 난 최와 약부 말. 최와 약부지 난 미담가 최와 깨를 뚱마다 하시는 것이 진짜 되게 지고. 뒤뒤 최와 나면 딱 차를 말 시비 매진 게 최와 말해. 어디인지 그 시큐티 제한거요. 뒤인도 시큐티 되게 밀었더니 최 그룹이래. 배나 되게 손가 파티 담바선 얘기. 아야 미다 시와지 된다. 당고 최는 지금 고지 바로 최를 준비 작지. 타마 죽을 줄 조세라. 미다 시와 생긴 당고 최 주기 맨 get더래. 맨 get더래 get나야 주기로. 최디 중에 미다 시와 되잖아. 최를 주기 로시하게 배나 강바는 주기 엔딩도 고토 버들래. 바로 최를 준비 작지. 최야 지리가 다 신경 다 마탕시 드링 보링 드링 요쇼 다 드링 무슨 말이야. 나 로직 제라 삼대게 로니 제라 온도 짝게 로숨 제라 직직에서 근데기만 저기다 인지게나 레지세 말해. 오야 다 근데 레지도 붙이는 데네 발리도 나 데네 디가 체메다 감상다 아하 마상이 시도 자고 로직 되는 제하고 다 하고 말해. 최 드링이네 저거래. 이냐비 로직에는 때 최를 준비 짜서 그냥 다시는 내가 작전점은 따지기 적어주고도 작전만이 따지고도 디나 신제기 나랑저랑 같은 애 그걸 봐 배나 다 작전 시간 아니 슈드기를 빼미기 나랑서는 슈 얘기를 때 팽을 바로 최를 준비 짜지 타마 추국들을 도저 땀이 다시 거다 bombo도 그러나 얘네 발갑지는 지금내가 나신기 때문에 시작해서 모르고 때문에 치와다 지키면 괜찮아. 오야 된 타마 추구르고 추구스나 다 상기고 봐서 상기고 도시 지즈밀라 손도 나 칠한 직내 리라트 남시 참에 gond고 다 치윈 직고 버데서 치윈용이 됐어 다 치와를 지고 지금에 다 상기에서 다 당분이 치와를 직직이 최진 치와를 직직은 준주지 다 치와 탐비 매우긴 다시 오늘게 치와게 되는 바닥이 겨서 다 치미기 싸서 손 바닥이 치미기 싸서 다 군정원자랑 되고 고른 거죠 뭐다 치기요 치미기 싸서 Timanege part of Mita Dushi to go with Mita was saying, Pemig engine, very, very important.
So, think about how difficult it is to obtain the freedoms and advantages, hasten to make this life meaningful. So with those two lines, we have the reflection of the precious human body endowed with freedoms and advantages. The next four lines are reflections on impermanence and death. Don't disregard impermanence and death, curtail all long-term plans. Look at the countless lives you've had, how difficult it is to encounter the sacred Dharma. So we need to keep impermanence in mind. We need to reflect on impermanence and really take the truth of impermanence to heart. Buddha said that the supreme thought from among all thoughts is the thought of impermanence. So from among all thoughts, the most supreme is that of impermanence, just like from among all footprints, the supreme is that of the elephant. And when it said that the elephant's footprint is supreme, this has two meanings actually. It can be said that it's supreme in the sense that it's the largest footprint from among all animals. But it can also be said to be supreme because of the shape it makes. Elephant's footprint leaves the pattern of a petaled lotus in the mud. So it can be the footprint is also supreme because of that beautiful pattern it leaves. Anyway, the supreme of all thoughts is impermanence. That's what Buddha said. Without taking impermanence to heart, without reflecting on impermanence, it will not occur to us to practice the Dharma. We won't be inspired to practice the Dharma. We just won't. That's why it's so important to reflect on impermanence, to acknowledge the impermanent nature of all things. There's not a single thing that is permanent or lasting, whether it be, a status or the nature of our circumstances or the external world. Someone might be incredibly beautiful, they might be very wealthy, accomplished, exalted, they might be very well educated and learned. None of that, though, is permanent or lasting. All of that is subject to change. The external world and material things likewise are all subject to change. There's not a single thing that is permanent, that is lasting. If we can take the impermanence of all things to heart, then we'll naturally want to practice the Dharma. We'll take joy in the Dharma. Just naturally, we will apply ourselves to the Dharma, and we won't regard it as a hardship. There will be no hesitation, no resistance. In the words of my perfect teacher, Pacha Rinpoche discusses impermanence in 7 or 8 different sections, or from 7 or 8 different perspectives, and he goes into so much detail, and it's so incredibly beautiful. His reflection on impermanence. We don't have time to go through that now. Nevertheless, those details and beautiful teachings on impermanence do exist in the words of my perfect teacher. A good practitioner, to always have impermanence and death in mind, is the sign or hallmark of a good practitioner. A good practitioner will keep impermanence so close to heart, just like wearing a protection cord fastened around their neck, constantly with them, all the time. Padamba Sangye said, impermanence at the beginning of the path, impermanence is like an entryway into Dharma. Impermanence is that which inspires us to take that first step and enter into the Dharma. In the middle, it's like a whip that keeps us going. So the example is a whip that you might, like a whip or a crop, you might use to spur a horse on, right? If you're horse riding. So sometimes when practicing, you've already started out in your practice, but sometimes we just fall prey to laziness. We feel like, oh, I don't feel like doing my practice today. I feel a bit tired. I feel a bit lethargic, and you put things off, or you think, oh, next year I'll do my retreat. 2 years later I'll finish my mantra. Or in 3 years' time I'll do my mantra recitation. We become lazy. So when we fall into those sorts of mindsets, if we can remember impermanence and remind ourselves that we actually don't know if we're going to still be alive tomorrow. We certainly don't know if we're going to be around next year. So that being the case, we need to apply ourselves now. That now is the only time we've got, and we need to use it. So in this way, the reflection of impermanence is like a whip or a crop that we can use to kind of keep ourselves focused, to speed ourselves up, just like when you hit a horse with a crop, and they accelerate, right? Finally, Padamba Sangye says, impermanence is that which leads one to the attainment of the Dhammakaya. This is to say that when you keep on practicing, inspired by impermanence, you keep on practicing and practicing, eventually you reach the result, the fruition, Dhammakaya. Like the great yogi Milarepa, when he reached the culmination of his path, he was utterly free of the fear of death. That's to say he'd attained the Dhammakaya which transcends death, right? The deathless state. Milarepa said, first of all, terrified by the thought of death, I fled to the mountains and applied myself earnestly in practice. I practiced and practiced out of fear of death, and now I've reached the point where I am fearless in the face of death. I've transcended all fear. That means he had arrived, like other great masters, Guru Rinpoche and Longchenpa and so on, at the state of deathlessness. So we all need to keep on we need to keep on reflecting on impermanence until we reach that point where, like Milarepa, we've transcended the fear of death. So until that point, the reflection on impermanence and death is, as Rinpoche said, very, very important.
Oh yeah. Titi in Bikala, Mitachiwa Maje Parasa, Otaring Nakatung Slavata, Nashigi Mare, Nalojatukre, 난 가서 일로만 가세요. 무지 저 로이야다 인슈트 거랬어. 가세요. 무지 저 로이 가라요. 근데 라마지는 가서 간지가 되지가지. 라마지가 말해. 상이랑 exhortation 시대요. 상이랑 대한민국 부담 시대에. 마시다 양내 나자기 시도. 지지가 합던다. 가서 나라도 코피 단도 두자선도 나라도 곤조 숨기까지는 마신 다다 이거 빼는 가버서 뭐 이상도. 시사는 다도 여마 빼면서 조사 타는 제자리. 캐나도이나 지기 나자나는 마시고 다르게 가버서 무슨 의미야. 아이 당한은이 최주기 골든 찬스도 톱둑상네 최주기 삼부당고 마도게 근데 디디시잖아 단차르다래 딘디가나 로마토게샤 덴체나다 가서 리커스나 다 카시 요즘에 이게 똑바로 라운트 되게 지금 밀라죠 어떤 거를 못 치죠 지금 치매기를 생기 톱되게 더 와있는 로자데다 되게 막히는 막게 되는데 말하면서 단다 비말은 비다트네 단다 신시하고 막 단다 야나로 상하를 죽되어 세고래 그만 메타 파워 신패브레 공구 고동을 공구 동주를 쓰기요 막 공개는 단다 너네 침미를 되게 거방이네 죽여야돼 가시까지 레타고 다른 야나 같으니 그거를 리우장하다 비말은 이제 여기 쓰기도 어떤 데인데 감때인데 다 뒤도 빼깔이 가버래 나라도 깔이 가버래 근데 용두고 말해 디미도 가는 나라도 메타야 뭐 되는데 최야 뭐 되게 별미게 계신 거를 맞도록 상이적인 낭이적인 해서 그렇게 상담도 되나 때마다 쉬어야 고 뚝뚝 말해 된쇼 뚝뚝라 네 배미게 감대시 부자래 메타시와도 되는 거래 메타시와도 약을 되나 소고 잡고 말해 최와 저기나 최남다시 그래 90이 된 거로 와 메타시와 메데데 최기 도는 거거를 남아서 그냥 거거를 담에다 먹어서 어떤 집이 답지 되어 되는 메타시와 생기면에 최의 지긴 소스는 아민치고 스콜러도 깨달아 친구 치고 사기도 민치고 치고 사기 그래서 이 탐지데 최와라 누르려나야 메타시와 맞으면 누르래 turkusola nuruyonaaya midashiwa matibwe nurure ya dangsan deyala dangkani kesa koala ta lo chungchung tamjige chik nangbigi chue jang nangbigi chue de jangne tene chik rangi tina chik pemige sarwa dinda shivu tu dinda chue nangla chene tene chik dindrigi tene chik kwa tar inji kena research teta sari dinda dhamida mangu chene tene chik kela shivu dang dinda yongjuga sambo danga mangu yorasi dangsan was dinge tene lo chunga tam pemige nurure tene midashiwa matibwe kyunre 예, 쳔딜을 집게 시켜라시고 법을 치고 상 딘들이 추나서 본데 저원인 되게 마신다 걔랑도 사이언티스트 이렇게 심죽전에 걔랑도 프리리마도 추 넘버 따고 심죽 거로요 당상 계속 계시 치기도 돼 로브라치우드나 찍찍찍 딜라티네 찍 심죽 치기였으나 가서 비만 미적이 잠벌 천줄을 심죽 치고 돼서 얘한다고 찍찍찍 택신 소리를 심죽 치었다 뒷께서 뺀 누르래 콩은 막 그런 야제 약으로 프로페 피어도 샤사리오 때가 심주 나지요. 심주식에서 dig 땅에서 그래. dig 땅에 빼미 약을 거어. 그러면 연대 시험기 미켜지 거를 말도 티타비지가요. 딜라는 빼 논르리. 상기 좀 된게 최 나라 나랑도 나신기 미큐마지기 딜어 속기하네. 담인데 때바이나 상기 좀 된게 최 그런 빼 메도 샤고. 빼는 맨지 나라 담에 때규 마서는 맨 그런 내가 미지 샤고 그러고. 엔디베틱지 나라 담에 먹을 펜도 샤고. 오, 아기다세. 땡도 가라. 나랑 담지 담은 디스오네. 가서선 로분 인인기 돈반 직진 미그네 숨주신. 본줄 끼우 같이 세바나. 대니마도 랑거 기르와이 년도 남기 덤바 디축수. 라. 따티 숨주 가서 상기 좀 되는 신샤서 미tum스다. 미tum스 신샤서 따티. 시사께서 돈반 직진이 숨주신 상기 좀 되는 신샤서. Contribute has seven as someone Dutch Kobanto taking Nilu Guton, Long and Joe, the Mekong Bujeto, Tisn't the Midula, Takantamjini, and if Midula. Ta Congress and Tenimoto Rangarto by Nilu Guton, Mato Bigitini, Chana Sosokyo, Namto and Damita Sojoti, Sanki John did the Temper to True. The Indukala, Temper the Mishi took Mark, Temper shaking so true. Kiwa Mangi to the Kiwa Union, Sanki John did the Chiso, Nai Temper, Nandishi, the Kong Drogitini. 저 시그리에서 템바시긴디 어야긴도 그만 템바시긴디 롭종 요게 빼미기 되네 그 나라서이나 가다다 스콜러도 유티긴도 프로페서도 이 진주석이 된 드라마들 상기기 때문에 담미를 때나 상기 때비기 땡식차 디디 리서치 말에 땡식차 땡도 나랑 sabscribe 거래 최치미기 때문에 줘야 또 지게서는 템바시기 말에 그 약고 이들 타와 탐지팀 고버 보지 토버 지비치도 남양다 도르마 미다시오데 미제 센디 민가 톱다 년자삼 제산지기 때문에 나온 드라마를 먹을지 당당선 워싱턴게 최초나라 카시뱀이 약을 카시뱀이다 워싱턴게 최초지 내가 요거 먹을 때는 계란도 워싱턴다 얘기 노시아 쪽도 노쪽 먹을 때 Titola di Ramano Sigi research in the Japan pen Tokyo making social. Not a count of Virginia Bushi, not even Hong Kong, Hong Kong, meeting. That means Lama Chen, who are very Hawaii or 5 star of the Kalak. Kalak best you would do. Kalash you wish you would look there. Didn't the German looking Magosada with that she looked the sauce of Mogulu. They corrupt the Kaji. Dang, yeah, that the color of the Shimu shoes or the Tizona Chigi look, Ni look, Sum look, see the same, the Sani making shot, Sham Takan, Shimu Milan Monday, the Yin Peshimu, did young thing and say something to the. That she was Yakus over and she was style, Chögyal with chicks, I think just to what me, the Aka. Teach I should look at me, Kalashim with Shiranja, Shasadu, mother, till look in the till and color payment. Oh, that did a bit chick, but Naran Sanki Chum did the temper shield number with them, but they'll dance and run juice in the chick, south and north and east and west and jam in the Maguti, T-shirt and knees and hit of each other, payment of each other. Did you come to some of the Abutangore, Naran to Midashiwa Tangore, Midashiwa and Sechima Corner in Masamatangore, Sechima Corner Samutana, Sobuduma, in the stop of the Machenka. The Sanki jumped in the research issue all my. I can not the science modern science, Chögyal, improve Chögyal. The Sanki jumped in the search the session, the Leperchal and Laura gave Kushimison and Sanki Chebasum the Tavisher, Sanki jumped in the Chebasum the Tavisher, the stories and a Sanki jumped in the Sherry, till an around society with toss of Tena, true the one, yes. Yamuji so much, I think. Oh, that damn you know that. Did the daughter.
Don't disregard impermanence and death, curtail all long plans. Curtail all long plans. So we need to take impermanence, the very fact of impermanence and death to heart, and with that, curtail all long-term plans. We need to stop delaying, stop procrastinating. Some students recently were pleading with me, "Oh, Rinpoche, please live to 120 years." I said, "For goodness sake, you think I have control of how long I live? We do not have control over how long we live. For all we know, we could be hit by a car tomorrow and die. We could die in a plane accident. We could be struck by an illness. We have no control over our lives. And to think that we do we're just fooling ourselves. For instance, recently we had the COVID pandemic, right? So many people were killed. I honestly think it's the kindness of the 3 jewels that I didn't get sick and didn't die like so many others. If I had died, say during the pandemic, I would no longer be here. My body would have disintegrated into dust by now. I would be non-existent, finished. The fact that I'm still alive, as I said, I regard it to be the blessings of the 3 jewels, and I think this is the very fact that I'm still alive is a golden opportunity to continue practicing the Dharma, to continue on my way. To tell ourselves anything different is just delusion. To pray for long life, and think that somehow you're going to gain control of your lifespan. It's just delusion. We need to acknowledge the truth of impermanence and death. We don't know when and how we're going to die. Of course, there are some beings, right? Some beings who, like Guru Rinpoche and Vimalamitra, who gain mastery over their lifespan, attain the state of the Vidyadhara, immortality, and so on. That is possible. Vimalamitra is said to have never died, actually. There's no account of him dying. There are no relics or remains of Vimalamitra. Rather, it's said that he attained manifested the Vidyadhara state of immortality and left Tibet for China, and is now actually abiding in Wu Taishan. Wu Taishan is the Chinese name, right? And actually people with pure karma can encounter him there, right, even these days. But unless you attain that kind of state, you are subject to change and death, and we don't know when death is going to strike. We could die tomorrow. So we need to just acknowledge this and take this to heart. As a practitioner, if we take impermanence to heart, that reflection, it's going to keep us focused on our practice. It's also going to keep us genuine and honest, because it's going to keep us genuine, honest, and and focused. It's only when we fail to take impermanence and death to heart, when we forget this, that we fall into distraction, into procrastination, when we start to fool ourselves, also when we start to fool others. You know, some people enter the Dharma with a good intention, but then they fall prey to, you know, maybe dishonesty and questionable motivations, and they end up doing things in the guise of Dharma that actually is not Dharma. You know, maybe they sort of actually driven by ego, they want to become a celebrated Buddhist scholar, for instance, or some, you know, great Buddhist figure or a teacher, or perhaps they try and deceive other people, other, you know, fellow Buddhists. If we really take impermanence and death to heart, our focus will always be on our Dharma practice and Dharma practice for our future lives. We will not get embroiled in these mundane concerns for, you know, for attainments in this life, because we'll be aware, we don't know, you know, this life could end tomorrow, it could end in a moment. So we're not going to get involved, we're not going to be drawn into afflicted and short-term aims for this life. Our focus will always be on our future lives, and to that end, on the Dharma. So when a practitioner goes astray in any of these ways I've mentioned, whether it be, you know, just a lay practitioner or a monastic or a lama or even a tulku, whoever it is, when they go astray in whatever way, all of those kind of going astrays and those shortcomings come down to the fact that that individual has not taken the truth of impermanence to heart. If they had taken impermanence to heart, and impermanence was at the forefront of their minds, they would not have embarked on that erroneous path, those erroneous actions. In connection to this, a few words about something I heard recently. I've heard that there are a lot of the younger generation, and maybe a lot of younger generation and others as well, who are going into kind of Buddhist academia out of, you know, interest in the Buddhist teachings. But then, you know, as they pursue their studies, then they take on adopt a very spurious approach to their studies. Instead of actually studying the Dharma according to the Dharma, they are sort of taking a mix and match approach. They are taking a very critical, approaching the Dharma with a critical lens when they don't even begin to qualify to do so. They're mixing the Dharma, the profound and perfect teachings of the Buddha, with new and untested ideas, and making a kind of soup of their own, thinking that this is, you know, they're doing something very ingenious and creative and original. It is just, it's ridiculous, and it's incredibly deluded, and it's also incredibly harmful. Harmful to them, harmful to others, harmful to the Buddha Dharma. The Buddhist teachings, first of all, in order to actually analyze Buddhist teachings, one needs to pretty much be Buddha himself. So, that's one thing. The other thing is Buddha Dharma is not like a secular subject. It's not modern science. It's not a field like a constantly developing secular field like science or medicine. In those fields, experimentation is encouraged, and creation, like the invention of new things and development that's sort of part of the nature of those fields. The Buddha Dharma is not like that. The Buddha Dharma is Buddha's teaching is already pure, perfect, and complete. So when we study the Buddha Dharma, we need to do so correctly, as Buddha taught, in accord with his teachings. To apply like a modern secular approach to the study of Buddha Dharma is, really just appalling, and should not be done. I've had people are taking like a research approach to profound texts, tantric texts like the Manjushri Samhita Tantra. I have people that undergoing these big research projects on the Manjushri Samhita Tantra, or Rongsa Mahapandita's entering the way of the greater vehicle, as if these are objects of research. Research means to kind of look at something through a critical lens, to search for faults in it, to study it in that way. Like I said, first of all, these teachings don't contain flaws or faults. They are, inconceivably pure and perfect already. And like I said, even if you were to kind of take that approach, you need to be up to it, and that means you need to be equal to those authors, enlightened authors, to even begin to sort of have that discussion. And just to say again, to mix the profound Dharma, Buddhist teaching, with new and secular material is, there's nothing good is ever going to come out of that. The Dharma itself will be damaged and diluted and lose its benefit. It's a bit like you take medicine and you mix it with poison, or you mix it with some other kind of substance that antidotes, the medical power. The medicine itself is good, but once you've mixed it with poison, it's not going to be able to help you anymore, So once you mix the Dharma with other stuff that's not Dharma, that, the bit of Dharma that's present in that soup, it's not going to actually benefit. There's a quotation Rinpoche quoted, so to paraphrase, Buddha Shakyamuni, a great master, said, Buddha Shakyamuni has passed away. This is like a lament. Buddha Shakyamuni has passed away. The Arhats and his successors, including the great Arhat disciples and also great masters like Longchenpa, Vimalamitra, these realized masters that were equal to Buddha himself, they are no longer present in the world. Instead, it's just us ordinary beings like ourselves with limited vision, blinded by the cataracts of attachment, aversion and ignorance. It's just us left here, and bit by bit we are destroying the Buddha Dharma. So that really can happen. We need to be very, very careful about this, and all of us, each of us, we need to keep this in mind. As Buddha said, because if we take this mix and match approach and everything else I just mentioned, and if we let that happen, the Buddha's teaching can actually can be destroyed from the root through those mistaken deeds. Buddha himself said that my teaching will not be destroyed by non-Buddhists, it will be destroyed from the inside by my own followers. Because non-Buddhists, they don't know enough, they're not even involved enough to actually be a significant threat to Buddha's teachings, right? It's actually Buddhists, or so-called Buddhists, who have some knowledge of the Dharma, some knowledge, but incomplete knowledge, and then fall prey to distorted understandings, fall under the sway of spurious motivation and so on, who kind of work from the inside and damage the Buddha's teachings from the inside. So this approach that many people are taking in academia and so on could do exactly this. So we really all need to be on guard. Like I said, if our motivation in practicing Dharma is not for this life, but for the benefit of our future lives, our future destiny, and we keep our mindset very firmly on this long-term goal of future lives and our long-term destination, through taking to heart the reflection of impermanence and death, the truth of impermanence and death, then we will not fall prey to these grave errors. We will not fall prey to the temptations of mundane concerns for this life, and these very insincere and damaging approaches to the Dharma. So I'm sure there are probably some people in Buddhist academia who are genuine and really doing good work and studying the teachings accordingly. I'm sure there are some, but I've been told that there are many others who are not treating the Buddha Dharma as it should be treated, and who are sort of mixing Eastern ideas with Western ideas, so to speak, mixing the old and the new, thinking they're doing something very creative and intelligent, where in fact they're just destroying themselves and potentially destroying the teachings. There's a story to illustrate this. In the past, I was in Taiwan. A student invited me to a restaurant. In Hong Kong. And we were, this meal was brought out. Actually, the meal, as it was served, was very good. But then at the restaurant, it was a fancy restaurant, and they brought out all these condiments, really loads and loads of condiments. And it's so sort of fancy and unusual to have all these condiments. So I sort of put a bit of one sauce in my. So someone else was putting the sauces and condiments on the main dish, really beautifully and eloquently, in a very sophisticated way. And I thought, oh, I want to be like that. So I started putting one sauce after the other, and a bit of this and a bit of that. So many things. Honestly, by the end, the food was disgusting. I discovered it because I'd added all these other things. I should have just eaten it as it was served to me. It was already delicious. That's just a story to illustrate this, how by mixing other ideas with what is already pure and good and perfect. So these days, he says, I don't add lots of condiments to my food. I just eat it as it's served. It's much better. So this analogy just illustrates, this dynamic with the Buddha Dharma. If we add all these new other things to what is already a pure and perfect and complete teaching, a teaching that does not need to be changed, that never needs to be changed, then all we're doing is degrading that teaching.
야 다들이만 되셔게 미다 치와 마제 포토사는 본 나카토 차타 차라 통마 내가 뛰어서 다들 날이 되셔게 비셔던 차브라가 미체 밀람 갑sam나 차체 마몬 쳬라들 롱지 저바 잠데라 유체 마제 차터도 차터도 냠제나 교우라 비쳐바 인사다til라 데인도 간단디나 캬 인스톨 켜기 주셔야 좀 알로션 지기도 제와 때문에 같은 이미 저한테 여러지 단디나 로직 something 로숨식 된 로숨니 된 로숨데 디지털 가게 말 샘주기 녀몽 바탑지 뜬네 샘기 약고 저기 문이 그랑 좀 리바 모드는 로숨 되나 감을 약고 다숨 되나 감을 로숨 다숨 만데네 지금 추드식 마도 쉐 마제나 샘로 기버 친구도 감을 약고 샘이 주로 마드는 로숨 숨 먹고 로숨 추게나 강하게 정거 릴레 되나 강하게 릴레 차다 지고 키다 바바탐 제기 릴때 상기가 말 ते पेजा ताना कहाँ लेके पेजा में वो तो गिशी ताई चीची बें केम्बो इन लोगों में डिग्री में वो जना कहता चाहो मत इंगी लब्यो मारे जिस मिला के सुन दो और या चुन्यम ने लब्दो माखेर ना गिशी सुशी के गोगोरी इंसे ने नीचे समो मगम ना ने रिट्रीट ना रंदु इंसे जिस मिला के सुन दो पेजा में वो खाने शेगु से रंग लाले माचे ने रंग तिना सिंह की प्रैक्टिकल लाले माचे ने खाने शेगु से ने गोगोरी ना जे पेटो खाने जो मान यातने गोमजू याबो नेलु गुतन याबो जबा छिमो छके छिमो गोमजू मेना रिल दे देना खाके मारे क्या पसा के दंदा जे छिना दंदा रंग गुतन यो मादा खाके मेमा रिल चोको जगी मादा मेमा यो ते इंदु काला लोसुम दासुम गितरे छि दंगा लोसुम रे दे तेला माइ से मिंता लोसुम नि दे तेला मिला छेदो छ गोगरे संगुराम संग याबो दंगा रंग तोबा याबो तुदु मिंदु 차소 नि मो बता जे चालदु दा मिंदु ओने निंजे चमा माइ बिगुले केगी दुता मिंदु 밀라 템바다 semjena 펜토게나 오니 파주도 베니핏 마도 랑기 베니핏 메게지 두다 민도 따니 진짜 야고잖아 오니 최시 최 주가전에 야월 마도 랑기 랑된 코다전에 미심 때문에 셴된 칼케로 나도 벽이지 랑기 상도 나오샤 나 미탄다 지금 미탄다 또 소거래 어다 되나 인도가는데 로숨 미숨 되나 하래교 말에 게시했다나 하래교 말에 캠부제나 하래교 말 띵일 랍교 말에 무슨 밀락 송교레스
So now I'm just going to read quickly through the following lines. And this human life is fleeting as a dream, so we got up to there. Don't fill it with actions and designs, focus on the Dharma. Don't boast about a few years or months of practice, but keep practicing till the very end of your life. To practice for as long as you live is the conduct of the best type of person. So again, like I said before, I'm not going to go through this line by line. I did that before in New York, so you can always listen to that recording for that kind of detail. One might say... Actually, the next two lines. If without hypocrisy and without deceit, you guard the vows and samayas, you're the Buddha's heir. So, what I'll say now will sort of cover or speak to these lines. One might stay on retreat for, as it says here, years or months. One might do years or months of practice, but don't boast about it. Because just engaging in many years or months of practice, it might be 3-year retreat or even several 3-year retreats. Just completing a retreat doesn't mean anything. The point of practice, whether it be a 3-year retreat or even just a session, is to change our minds, right? To tame our minds. So if you stayed on a 3-year retreat, well, don't boast about just staying on a retreat. You need to actually analyze for yourself. Okay, how much have I changed through that practice? Has my mind been transformed? Has my mind been influenced? Are my afflictions decreased? Am I more tamed? Am I more compassionate? And so on and so forth. You really need to be honest with yourself. Otherwise, if years of practice, if they don't bring about change, it's of no significance whatsoever. The point of practice is to change ourselves. And if you can change yourself, say in a single session or 2 sessions, then that's great. That's as effective, if not more effective, than staying on some 3-year retreat and boasting about it. Just staying on retreat, if you don't actually transform your mind, then staying on retreat is just like being in prison. No point. Staying in the mountains is nothing. Deers and wild animals, birds and bees, they're up in the mountains too. Doesn't mean there's anything special about them. The same goes for study, right? So here, Dudjom is talking about practice, but the same goes for study. You might study intensively for years and, be awarded the title of Kempo or Lopam or what have you. But if you haven't tamed your mind, big deal. It doesn't matter at all. I'm not the one saying this, right? Yogi Milarepa himself said this. To paraphrase the lines Rinpoche quoted, Milarepa said, if you just study the Dharma, you study and talk about it, but you don't transform yourself through practice, all your talk or your study is just self-deception, nothing more. So if you stay up in the mountains, but you don't actually practice Mahamudra and the great perfection, you don't manifest those states, you don't transform yourself, literally all you're doing is just sullying the mountain by shooting there for all that time. We need to be very honest with ourselves. Some people might finish a 3-year retreat and then think, oh, now I'm a lama, now I'm qualified, now I'm a practitioner, and then they go off and do this and that, telling themselves that they're doing it to help others that they're teaching the Dharma to others. But before you even think about doing that, you really need to check in with yourself. You need to, see where you're at. How much have you changed through your practice? How strong are your negative emotions? What kind of hold do they have on you? How self-interested are you? How strong is your compassion and bodhicitta, and how quickly is it growing? How strong is your faith? Is your motivation really simply and purely to benefit sentient beings and the Buddha Dharma, or is there something else going on? We really need to be honest and to analyze ourselves, to check in again and again with ourselves. Otherwise, we can just become a charlatan, a fraud, and go about, preaching the Dharma and pretending to help beings when really we're just deceiving ourselves. So, like I said, even if you've done 2 3-year retreats, or even 3-year retreats, or even if you've become a Kempo or Lopan, big deal. Unless you've really transformed yourself, none of that matters.
Tony Tower, Rinpoche, Mushitire, Tony Tower, Rinpoche, Parmegumna, Nanjori, Requacha, Milodi, Nonsa, Rankar Duna, Rinzin, Tadi Tower, Gumba Yam to Shari. The Tony Tower, Rinpoche, Tadi Tony, second, the Singita with Tony Tamare, Chidana Tony, Singita with Tony to Yore, doing the Tony is the Ripachugus return there. Titambo, and the Tony Minji were Tony and Singita, Tony, Agela Tony. Descending was again the Zopachim Negabo, descending was over, Singita one Negapo, descending was over, Yanni descending was nurse and so. The Inducala, I didn't know more than a Tizugo Godore. The Tony is again the Ripa Chukula Combo. Chukutomba the Ripa Tony is like it. But Ripa Chukus again the Karis about Takazon, the Paginator of the Lavin, working it and the New York and Mokush Lavin. Tang around the Patu Rinpoche Cancer, Chison Reservancher. Tiang Mai, Hedeva, La Santa, Le Samatajun, Judim, Chukan Pomos, Sam Tons of Ginawa, Marashani, when you get in a trap of Tani Beba, and around to get in a task in Chevana, Ripa, Kurang mode, Tomba Imba. Tomba Setica, Tom Shantan Chigam, and Amkana, in Rayama, Tombi Rambam, Salva Imba. Salva Tian, the Nickel Gapan Imba, Hisum Tila. Tomba Chuku, Ranshin Server, Lungu, Tuchikun, Tulku, Setati, Ripa Korang, Doshaman, Sosomare, Chuku, Lungu, Tulku, and Azuku, Chuku, Silikan Kundus, and watching Javramati to setting into Longu, Silikan, Dorji Sambatu, Dorji shooting, the Tulku, Silikan, Aransa, Guru Buchet, the Recipe Shaman, that each chief Sunches and Jermata. Don't do the rank Ripatico or Ripat Tomba, Shambatan, Mepaton, Ripat and Kapan Megatilla, Chuku said. The Randang the Ripatis, Kenjam, Salsajo, the Salsatilla, Lungu, the Salsat in Gapan Mepatar, around the Metan Rangi, Chisor, Topa making Jura, the Tujukunjo, Tatilati, Tulgure, Chukulungu, Tulkusung, Ripa Korong, Kusum, the Yuri. The Korong Kusum, Tawa, the Gombacheva and daughter, the Tobachimbo Tawa, the Gombacheva and Tateo Mare, Takumchova, Tate met somewhere in Patron, the Indukala. The Tony is a Gevat in New York to Linerochi. Tony Tower, Rinpoche, Parmegumna, Nanjores, Ripakusum, native Tangu Hakoache, Hakoatilla, native around to Gisana, Tawas again the Nishiri, Tawas again the touchable lawyer. That Timaton Rosas and a middle near beginning Nishiri Shona, they gum the Yagu or Mato, Nishir and Gum Yaguma. Didn't the Tangu Nishigore, Rangi, Ripata Sangi Imba. 상기 코롱기 퀄리티 서버 인지게나 뭐 서버 뭐디 되네 똥바인가 야 랑신 서버인가 투지 군집게 다 가정이 뺑아샤다 당고라샤 다 드링야 되게면 되네 그 트러버 되네 그바 야 되네 그 남카다고 트러버 똥이 남카다고 따라신 것을 님마다고 되게 당고 능아타야 어때 디도데 디팅도 다 디도위 그리고 코롱기 뭐디라 다 독신이시네 페이션은 마시기로 뭐고니시나 숨을 뭐던 거라신도 숨도 죽군죽게 당이 쟁기리 거래 디리 거래 당고 하고 디상기래 다티 온데 시규라 생각하시고 말하면 랑박소 마주리 바랑도 카인들레 때문에 가셔는 지납됐다 좀 등에 눈주는 구주소 디 하고 왔지 하거이 마다 말래 자 잡주산에 마체니 되니 가스 샤프도 추스 가라마 니만다와 로이바 마샤데 되니 심 코로나 난게 윤딘이야 샤로 빼나 추 샤샤나 되니 추 당동이도 이 당동이나 심 코로나 살바지야 샤롱게 때때라 인제요 셴바양 메리 감좀 걸어봐라 지금은이게 셴바 로 먹고 셴바 로도 왼도 지금 인제야지 아티 인제에서 먹고 인제랑 신슈기 지금 인제 끼운 게 셈나나 봐라 인제야 끼 총년도 어야 근데 용죠 디디 나랑 좀 몸이 약고 이게 따라 근데 리파티 뭐도 유는 거 내고 주지라 곰바스 리빙 나라 내기도 곰 신다 요마 리빙 나들 내기도 곰세 어야 강라 미션 버틀 줘봐서 신나다 듣고 또뭐 따와도 곰 타디 쉬고 곰 야 라디 되셨다 주저로다
Now we reach the main part of the practice. We start to discuss the main part of the practice, meaning the view and meditation and so on. So to train in the precious view of emptiness without interruption is the practice. When you let be without fabrication and construct-free vipa, the carefree state, your vidyadhara. So to train in the precious view of emptiness here we need to understand is not referring to emptiness as understood in the vehicle of characteristics. Of course, emptiness, the same term, is used in the vehicle of characteristics, the sutra teachings. But here, when the text says emptiness, we're talking about emptiness as understood at the level of the great perfection, so namely natural awareness, rigpa, dharmakaya. It's important that we understand the different meanings that the same word can have in different levels of Buddha's teachings. Otherwise, if we interpret emptiness in this, say, the great perfection context in the same way as emptiness is explained and used in the sutra in the vehicle of characteristics, we will get confused. There are many terms are like this, right? Like Buddha nature, for instance, is used with different connotations in the sutra context and, say, in the great perfection context, right? So we need to be aware of the different nuances and layers of meaning that often one single word holds. I won't go into I won't elaborate on this now, but in short, we need to be aware of this regarding Dharma terminology. Rinpoche quoted 4 beautiful lines by Pata Rinpoche. In short, those lines speak to describe the nature of the mind and how the 3 kayas are present, or are the very nature. Or the 3 kayas are present within Rigpa, or better said, the 3 kayas are the nature of Rigpa. So Pata Rinpoche's beautiful lines basically say that describe how the mind is empty and empty yet lucid and clear. In this state it's utterly beyond concepts and extremes. So in this way the essence of the mind is empty. The true essence, ultimate essence of the mind is empty. When we examine and analyze, we can come to see this for ourselves. Mind essentially is empty. However, this empty essence of mind is not just like a blank void state, not just like inert space, but rather this empty essence of mind is endowed with a natural radiance, a natural glow. This is clarity or cognizance, we could call it that. And this clarity is unimpeded. It's unimpeded and unobstructed. It has an innate capacity. These are the intrinsic qualities of Rigpa, of natural awareness. They're not separate things. They're rather, the innate characteristics of single Rigpa, single nature, natural awareness. So these are said to be the trio of the empty essence, the luminous nature, and the unimpeded compassionate capacity. These are the ultimate 3 kayas, the true 3 kayas. And these are naturally present, or rather, these are the identity. Rigpa is the identity and embodiment of these ultimate three kayas. We need to know that this is what the three kayas really are. The three kayas are not like, if you think Dhammakaya Samanthabhadra is this blue naked Buddha, and the Sambhogakaya is Vajradhara, who's holding a Vajra and bell and wearing jewelry, and the Namanikaya, that's Guru Rinpoche, those are like symbolic illustrations of these three kayas being various characteristics or qualities of Rigpa. Those are just symbols. The three kayas really are referring to the empty essence, luminous nature, and unimpeded capacity of Rigpa natural awareness. So the empty, lucid, the lucid emptiness of the mind is the Dhammakaya. So the empty essence of the mind is the Dhammakaya. The natural radiance, the natural cognizance or clarity of that empty essence is the Sambhogakaya, the luminous nature. And the unimpeded or unobstructed capacity of that luminous empty mind is the Namanikaya, the unimpeded compassionate capacity. So in this way, all three kayas are naturally present in Rigpa. Rigpa is the nature of the three kayas. We need to understand this. We need to understand this very clearly and with confidence, a deep felt confidence. It's because, and we also need to understand that because of this, in connection with this, then in the Great Perfection, the view, meditation, and conduct are actually not separate things. The view, meditation, and conduct are not separate things in the Great Perfection teachings. So we first need to understand this, right? To know that the three kayas are intrinsic to Rigpa. We need to understand this with certainty, like a deep felt certainty, unshaken certainty. This kind of certainty is what we mean by the view, arriving at this stable certainty that yes, that is really the case. The first thing we need to do is to cultivate this certainty. Without that certainty, we can't really train in meditation, because meditation, in the Great Perfection context, meditation is to train in maintaining the view. So if you haven't established the view, you can't maintain that through meditation. So first of all, we need to understand, really understand it, and feel confident in the fact that Rigpa, our natural awareness, is essentially enlightenment. It is awakened. It is the awakened state. And we need to understand the qualities that state is endowed with. We can understand that in terms of the empty essence, luminous nature, and compassionate capacity. Again, these are just three aspects of the same thing, right? We're not talking about three different things. There's three qualities of Rigpa itself. We can also explain Rigpa, natural awareness, in terms of the 5 analogies I gave last night and also in New York. That mind is empty like space, luminous like the sun, and so on, right? I won't repeat those though. So that is the nature of Rigpa. Rigpa is awakened, awakened by its very nature. Dudjom also speaks to this in his beautiful Calling the Guru from Afar. She quoted 2 lines, I won't try and repeat them. So we need to know this with certainty. I'll say that again. And then we need to rest without contriving in that certainty. So we arrive at a level of certainty, and then we meditate, which is to say, we simply train in resting, letting be in that state of certainty without contriving or fabricating. We do that for minutes, for hours, for days, for weeks, months, and years. We apply ourselves to simply maintaining, without any contrivance or interference, that state of certainty. That clarity about the nature of Rigpa. If we practice in this way, then naturally, just like placing a glass of water and leaving it untouched, leaving it still, as the water will naturally clarify, just of its own accord, if you don't interfere with it. In the same way, if we rest without contriving and fabricating, then Rigpa itself will naturally manifest. It will become clear to us, so to speak. And when that happens, when we arrive or return to Rigpa natural awareness, we'll find that compassion, unimpeded, unconditional compassion, naturally arises just without any trigger, without any effort, for all beings, without any any trigger. This is this natural sort of flowing forth of compassion, a natural renunciation for samsara and confusion. This and other qualities just spontaneously arise within us. So to train in maintaining Rigpa in this way is what we call meditation in the Great Perfection, in short, and to remain free of attachment and conduct. So with this we have the view, meditation, and conduct of the Great Perfection.
Yeah, rankar dona rinzin is like that. So much of a chachil is the term, so much of the Gawas of the Goma in love. Tana Chopa Canadians, Chopa Mitam, Mitim, but Ransa Zua Chadang, Chopa the Mitam, Mitam the Consideration, Ali, the Daddy not Dubutan, the Yen not Kibutan, Kibu Junior the Yen, property, the Nipe get out Simbuy, Dubutan they die. Dubutan did tongue in a loss to get Ragamila Teen. Teen to come Tamji, tree using in some good matter, rang in some go. Teen didn't be true. Oh, yet the name only Yamlin, but Zopashaboy, Tamji, Jata, Yenda, Namdo, Sambo, Korwa, Yante, Tamji, still you go hapo. Teen to come Tamji, Namjuna, Rangasamla, Atene, Rangasambi, Mole Tene, then told over, till Shengi or Mari, Dulki Dubato again, should have removed again, I think. Namdo Tamja, Ransa Dantona, did Namjur Bichabatri. Jide Bichabati, Chile, you, Dachila, you, Genlet, you, Kibuchila, you, Dubuchila, you, China, shit, I'm jealous again. Ningarantoge, not Jigin Tamal Bichabari. Joba Midam, Mitumba, Joba Midam, Mitumba, Gincentre, Mitumba de Gincentre. Jigden Basili, Chevas, Gansan, Jigden Basili, Joba the Shield Junker, Da in Yerin Tamji Chilo, Kidu Tamji Chilo, Younger Sami, Banglan Tamji Chilo. Nanjil what they can run the seven old than singing over the Latine, Tamji again, Namdo Tamji semi Mahato, Namdo again, the semi Basem, Namdo the semi Kiva, or Sam Namdo Koran Granshin de Matua, Jumata Milamto, only get any carpara, she met that little more talkative, then Nanjil begins to Chaba. Yes.
So to let be without contriving is the meditation. So the carefree state, to let be without, to settle without contriving is the meditation, as taught in the above two lines. So now the conduct, to avoid modifying your behavior for others, but hold your ground, is to be a renunciant. This is described in the conduct of the Great Perfection. So, if we regard enemies and friends as being the source of our happiness and suffering, we regard, well, this is how worldly people think, isn't it? How people who are not practitioners think. They think that anything that harms me, anything that causes me suffering, so someone who insults me, someone who takes my property, someone who, creates some kind of legal problem for me, they are the cause of my suffering, and therefore they are my enemy. On the other hand, my property, my friends and circle, my wealth, my status, my friends, these are all the source of my happiness, and therefore they are friends, or they're things that I like. This kind of mindset that identifies happiness, the source of happiness and suffering, as external, the source of happiness and suffering as existing outside, separate from oneself. Well, that's a mistake, that's delusion. That is the way that worldly people think. So as practitioners, we need to recognize that happiness and suffering do not come from outside, actually they come from inside, from within us. We need to recognize that happiness and suffering, the source of happiness and suffering is our own mind. To be able to recognize that, and through recognizing it, to liberate ourselves from the conflict of happiness and suffering and all of that delusion, that is a sign of a practitioner. That is to be a practitioner. So, like I said, worldly people regard happiness and suffering to be situated outside of themselves. And that's actually the source of discord, disharmony with others, right? Because you regard others as being the source of your happiness or the source of your suffering. You have this mindset that thinks that certain things external to you need to be abandoned and other things external to you need to be adopted, to be got and got rid of. And that creates conflict. A practitioner, on the other hand, recognizes that all suffering and happiness actually is the creation of conceptual thought. Conceptual thought is the domain of the mind. the product of the mind. Mind itself is not established, it does not exist. It is simply a dream, an illusion. It is without root, without origin. A practitioner recognizes this. So this is the distinction between wealthy people and practitioners.
다들 좀 된되게 나는 아주 대중 좋던 되게 빼지야 해도 나랑 저기 직진벽이 저거 친구 저거치단 가르치랬더라. 싱글라 도트는가 키라 도봉박들 미차이 싱글라 도봉박들 자오서서 다디 빼니 무시오지. 빼는 나랑 저기 직진벽이 미디 대두 탐지 치를 좋은 상계티 치료 그래서 치료 도자간다 오지래서 대두 탐지 데 생기기는 중조래 사하고네 샘 셴버도 원의 중조래에서는 생기 게되네 도자간을 미스고 도라 미스는 도자간을 zon게 나시 생기 나시래서 디스포레스 디 간데스나 미치게 도체온도 그나 킬 도자인다 그나 킬 도도 미르서 마자와체 도소자 때네 도소자 때 미기 도탁 링도 요도 때 킬탁 링도 도니 다지 걸어서 담제 차 때네 걸어봐 밀을 묵도 말해 얘네 도자한테 만들어 킬 도자한 만들 그 도라냐 그러고 밀냐 말아 싱글 도슈기면 싱글 도슈야 싱글냐 도슈긴 있어 일단 코스 미스를 양올라 싱글 도슈 두고 말해 코스 사도 그러시나요 이두가 남도 시리에서 다큐멘터리에서 대중들은 남도 시를 주기로 치를 도자가 나신 저기 시를 대화탐지 시를 누마탐지 시를 자다인도 지금 걸어다니는데 좀 시를 정도 싸운다는 시를 도방된 나시래 디가뒤는 타요 말에 되게 패다고요 말에 누구나 싱글 도방 왔다는 식으로서 강사잖아 싱글 도방gen 그랬어 거래 와래 대두탐지 쌤이 중요해 쌤이 싸워대 쳐서는 대두기 싸워대 쳐봐래 쌤이 싸워주는 걸어다니는 생기를 대봐래 상자 하고네 되는 저것이분 난 저렇게 쌤이 뭐다네 쌤 때문에 동반이 되게 쓰기 뭐 동반을 신도 두식군 죽긴 한다 말아 샤는 돌로 인도는 뒤 내 생기기 쳐봐랬어요 나 집에 누구냐 무시워 이렇게 나왔는지 쌤이 샤워치 대단하다 이 부분 나마 생기 그랬다 대충 좀
So, Buddha Shakyamuni illustrated this, and actually I'll use an example from Longchenpa's treasury of the Supreme Vehicle. So there he says, Longchenpa says, don't be like a dog who chases.
sorry, the Longchenpa
So this example, my mistake. This example is taught by Buddha Shakyamuni and is found in the sutras. In the Kangyo, but it's also used by Longchenpa in his treasury of the Supreme Vehicle. So there it says, don't be like a dog who chases after a stone that's thrown at him. Instead, be like a lion who chases after the stone thrower. So the dog is an example for wealthy people, right? Wealthy people think that the source of all their happiness and suffering comes from outside of them, and they look for happiness outside of them, right? The practitioner, so they're just like a dog in that way. A dog, if you throw a stone at a dog, it's not going to look for who threw the stone, right? It's instead going to look at the stone and it's going to go and grab the stone and bite the stone and get angry at the stone. But practitioner, on the other hand, should be like a lion and is like a lion. When you throw a stone at a lion, and when you throw a stone at a lion, the lion does not look at the stone. The lion instead looks up to see who threw it, and then they deal with the person who threw the stone at them. So practitioners should be like that. They need to recognize that the source of their happiness and suffering is not outside of them, as wealthy people think, but rather inside of them. So just to say about the example again, when you throw a stone at a dog, this really happens, right? The dog just chases after the stone, they bite the stone, they gnaw into it. And then if you throw another stone at them even further away, then again they chase the stone, right? And they run even further away, and so on and so forth. So they actually kind of move by chasing the stone, they actually get further and further away from the source of the stone, which is the stone thrower, right? And all their attention goes on the stone itself, biting the stone to the point where actually they crack their teeth and end up teethless. So such is the approach of dogs. The lion, on the other hand, like I said, does not pay attention to the stone. Instead, they look to the source of the stone, the person who threw it. So this is to say that we should not direct our thoughts outside of ourselves. Here the teachings are saying, do not direct your thoughts to the external. Don't look for happiness and suffering outside of yourself. Don't regard happiness and suffering, samsara and nirvana, pain and pleasure to exist outside of yourself. There's no benefit in doing that. That is a mistake. Instead, be like a lion. Recognize that the root of pain and pleasure, suffering and happiness is your own mind. It's within yourself, your own mind. And recognize that your mind itself, in essence, is empty, without any real existence. The mind's true nature is natural awareness, which is empty in essence, luminous in nature, and unimpeded in its compassionate capacity. The true essence of mind transcends samsara and nirvana. One needs to recognize this, look inwards, recognize this, and through recognition, one can be liberated. So that is what we need to do. You need to be like the lion, looking at not at the stone, but the one throwing the stone. And if you, when you get back home, you look this up, look up lions and stones on YouTube or something, you will see exactly what I mean.
Okay. Tene ta dine ma disi joshine. Gamba tutte me baro chipur ne bar training sta. Che dena unni mi dunse dan jiktin Chögyal so for maybe Tony debaina de retreat ta bare. Chögyal jevi samje na chunyi ngang ne chambai. Jiktin Chögyal de jera cham yang ta ba de jiktin Chögyal la shen do. Cham mare sam dena ya. Ma losun dena ngala ke level dik to. Losun chambare ko lobun re se tin de shamu chewi to sa ke to da.
To avoid keeping company with others, but live in solitude is to have a mountain hermitage, or we'd say to be a mountain hermit. So to live in solitude without connecting with others is to be a mountain hermit. To draw a boundary against the 8 worldly concerns, the 8 worldly concerns of hope and fear, to separate oneself from those 8 worldly concerns and remain in the intrinsic nature is to be on retreat, or to be a retreatant. So when one stays in retreat, one needs to do so free of all mundane concerns, all hope and fear around the 8 worldly concerns. Otherwise, to stay on retreat with, driven by the 8 worldly concerns, is of no benefit. It doesn't mean anything. The same goes for study, pursuing your studies so that you can be awarded the title of Kempo or whatever, or staying on retreat, and thinking that you're now going to attain recognition or some special status. That's falling prey to the 8 worldly concerns. And so we should draw a boundary against those. Dudjom Lingpa is telling us this right here.
Tene ta diwa detail ta jin shinda ta ta tuse mi dongin de la karma chama tuse de karma chama tuse no ta zo zo tangin din ma gung de sha gen chilung ji ma de sha gen de kana ba ta ji je la de ge de sig ni ha ko res.
So I'm going to pretty much stop here. We've covered a lot of the content already. We've also run out of time or over time. So from here on, I'm just going to give you all the long with some very brief explanations, so like a trilong. And later on, if you want to, you can always listen to the recording of my much more detailed teaching later on if you want.
Right. Imba dun dan de gun na tusum jalu tumsu pian lama tam junjing tan din na jing jam men chana onye jing jawa dan junjing yang ta ba so gong tu da ju ni ji ju ba yang ta ba chap tung de jun ni ju ba yang ta ba di gong ni sheken tam je de ya ko nyam so ma khong gi ju ba yang ta ba de so.
When you possess these 7 qualities, you're a beneficiary of the Buddha's past, present, and future. You're a holder of the sublime Guru's lineage. So if you practice in these ways with these 7 qualities mentioned above, then you are a holder of the lineage, meaning the 3 lines of transmission, the wisdom lineage, symbolic lineage, and oral lineage. You're a holder of the Heruka Dudjom Lingpa's lineage.
Aho ne kangduk no ajay ne tu namya sheba gasa le tok sutret shitul chopan zang lechi sheba yu gewar de dambi yangchu tamba yensem ye ne ma chu chon ta da langon du kina to de yensem ye tong tang sang yo dal la ngo rang tok chopa to de yensem ngô ye sang ye pa la ngun tu ju na to de sem ye ju ko de ta nyam che ngô rang sar che pa to de sem khon sem khor de u ju chen bo la de rang mo ju na to de yin hun ju de sen tigli ko pel sin ne se bi tar pe tar ju no pom kur jali to sen diru to to ashik do re nga ge bu la mo te yin pe to nyam su long se kal den po she Chögyal ki kurungoro sa chakung Dudjom lingu me pa gyo sarva mangalam. Ta bichi songa juu songa re, ta yung kona mungu songa jaro. Ta chi sana juu la zoba chimbo yamu gona tene tango nami rizin, tene chawan rizin, ten lundu rizin, ten shakya rizin kurungshi toga re. Ten lundu rizin to ne kapsa jalyu pe shaka re. Ta jalyu jotu wa chiong songa chi, tene ngon pemi ke hali wa yabu yins. Tsadra travato bari takyo chirochi chungsun chung tsadra sangi wa chiro timan to karwa bumma wa chirochi rem tete kona ta pemmi ki ta tilabe kongi to ina kulwa chimbo ten kongi sung dunjung yungi ki sung dilla sung juda pe mes to nyonzo lam shi ka di ten kasam gup sheba mayin ba chatan tubat ki nyamni chirochi ni kongi Chögyal la dama yin. Okay, finish.
Can I read the remaining lines or not?
Yeah, like
Read it? Okay. Aho, wherever you are, appearances are free and unconfined. At all times, awareness is going to be joyful. Whoever you meet, your conduct is beautifully serene. Whatever you do, it's done carefully and blended with virtue. These are the sacred quintessence of the instructions. Mind is forever unfabricated beyond concepts and extremes. When you actualize this state, you're realized. Mind is primordially empty, naturally luminous and unsullied. When you recognize this within yourself, you're realized. Mind's true nature is primordially awakened. When you actualize this state, you're realized. Mind is primordially liberated, the great purity and the quality of samsara and nirvana. When you recognize this in its own place, you're realized. Mind is the great consummation of samsara and nirvana. When you see this for yourself, you're realized. Naturally present basic space, the Bindukaya of great bliss, increasing, ripening, then reaching complete exhaustion, and finally liberated as the rainbow body into the youthful vase body. Hasten to attain liberation in this life. This is what I, an old man, have to say. Put it into practice, my fortunate son. In response to Chögyal's request, Herupa Dudjom Doje gave this advice, virtue sarva mangalam. So with that, Rinpoche has given us the full long for the text. This closing section is talking mainly about the fruition, meaning the result of great perfection practice. If one practices the great perfection well, then one will attain the four Vidyadhara states, the Vidyadhara of ripening, the long life Vidyadhara, the Vidyadhara of the great seal, and the spontaneously present Vidyadhara. And when you attain that fourth Vidyadhara level, the spontaneously present Vidyadhara, then you will manifest the rainbow body, and that will be absolutely fabulous. When Dudjom says hasten to attain liberation in this life, he's really exhorting us. It's like a strong imperative here. He's exhorting us or encouraging us to please apply ourselves. He's telling his students, please put this into practice, like do it right now. Put this into practice and let yourself manifest full enlightenment in this body, in this life. Let yourself be free from samsara. Just do that. He's giving us this strong encouragement and exhortation to apply these instructions. This is what I, he says, an old man, have to say. Just put it into practice. Practice, my fortunate son. So with this, the teaching is finished. Now please dedicate the merit.
Ye tam je sekma ye to ne ye be do na ba je shi ke ga na chi ba lam du pa ye si be to le do Siddhi Viprayata Savakama Sutame Siddhi Guru Om Samaya Sato Samaya Manupalaya Nudavadana Tisuduramiva Sukayamiva Supakayamiva Anuratamima Savasiddhi Viprayata Savakama Sutame Siddhi Guru Om Bhagavan Tathagata Samaya Sato Om Bhajasato 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 Kusum to Chan Chu Sho Kanto Kive Kiva Tamji Tutori Tintin Tamra Kemata to Chetan Tekin to Shinju Verona Yavajati Alamata Vajin Shara Chodom Nene Godu Sedesivi and God Sabata Shurpin Shindu Lapsin Shindu Tamji Chamji Sangi Tabra Show the Shedi Kunja together the Malam Gazan Talame Shik and Regina Tindra Pandra Dawson Guru Show Gunzam to Chan Vichin Tintin Lama Chicken the Malanga Teta Tamji Dagi Rubara Show to Dinzi and Jilong Jabashi to the Megaton but she took to some company curate, Bamero, much of watching it in pushing that but Minusha Tante Basing curate, like you take with them, I showed them on the certificate, they kept it on the gadget. She took them to some Punjab show, they had to do uncle and also get about the Mangi judges and Batam, she getting it out of 20 years of the Malay. Shuggy, number of some you make a bit to each other, but that they shouldn't do the accuracy, not Sometimes you should bring him and let me to get a little cheese. That's what you need to do.
No time for Q&A.
Thank you very much.